Muted.
Just a quick announcement before we kick into the meeting is that those who are new to our meeting, it is 4 hours, so it's quite a lengthy meeting. We do break for lunch, and guests, if you need to grab something to eat, the DPW cafeteria is across the way of the courtyard. Then to also announce, we have a new replacement for Stephanie on the administrative side, and that's Mauro Lee. So welcome, Mauro. And then, 2015 ended on a really good note with the ITC being extended for another 7 years. And then I believe that today we're going to probably hear the release of the final decision about net metering from the CPUC. That's right, Jeff?
Expected, yeah.
Okay. So let's hope that by the end of this meeting we have some more good news. Also, on another note, we wanted to mention that we were looking at possibly changing the SEAC name. The reason why is because there's a bit of confusion out there. Some people think that we are SEAC. So the possible name changes we thought of was Solar Energy Coalition.
Could you put an S at the end of that so we can call it sex? That was Jeff.
We're just going to we're going to throw the 3 options on the screen.
If I can just say something about that, there's another organization, SEAC, which is well known throughout the state, and we're getting a lot of confusion back and forth. So we've been politely asked if we could try some other name. So we're looking at options, and of course, we're here from you.
So those are the 3 options that we're considering at this stage.
So with that in mind, would there be a thought of actually adding in somewhere the state of California, just simply so that people, because somebody might think, oh, so you guys are dealing with across the country. We're not dealing with across the country.
Not yet.
Yeah, exactly.
Is there any other SECs out there that you guys Googled and SECs?
Well, there's no SEC out there. Don't worry. So I think about it. There's no decision necessary today. Just provide feedback to Paula.
Yeah.
If there's a suggestion, if we put in California in there, just speaking on behalf of the county, it could be problematic for us because we're the only ones that are funding this right now. So if we say California, then I may have to. I get a little nervous. So
I understand. Why don't you call it Southern California?
LA County.
So just Paula, and we'll go from there.
We'll send these names out to everyone at the end of the meeting. When we.
Just a curious question is why can't we just resolve it right now? It would be really quick.
Yeah.
Just do a quick straw poll, and if we're there, then let's just move on.
Unless we have other ideas beyond these, are we locked into these 3? No, we're doing something else. Well, just thinking, if we think something else, we might take a little time to think about it.
Yeah.
With it almost.
Yeah. The first thing you Google and it pops up was your guys.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you anybody says anything different, just send it to Paula, and then we'll put it back out there, and then you can do it by email. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. And then also to mention that we're going to have our first SEAC webinar on Wednesday, March the 2nd. I think you'll remember at the end of last year we mentioned that we were going to have workshops and that became logistically challenging. So we've decided to kick off with webinars and replace our workshops with webinars where we can promote the briefing notes on the work of SEAC to everyone in the public. So our first one, we'll be presenting the AB 2188 briefing note, and those who will be presenting that is going to be Hector, Don, and Sparky. So we'll send you the details of all of that, and we will send it out to our target audience as well. Then also to mention that we had a strategic meeting at the end of last year, and we decided that it might be better for the technical work groups to transition to Google Drive or Google Docs for our collaborative work. It just offers a lot more functionality. So those of you who are not familiar with Google Docs and Google Drive, we do have tutorials that we can send to you. But it's a better platform to use than using our current Word docs where people do track changes. It really becomes challenging monitoring all of that. And then we had there was one or two of our, sorry, yes, John?
So you said if we ask, you'll send the tutorials, or could you just send us a link to the tutorials just to all of us?
I can send to everyone then a tutorial.
And then those of us who know it can delete it, but those of us who
okay.
would appreciate it.
All right, I'll do that. All right, and then last week we had, which I thought I might just mention at this meeting, and I want to make sure that we're not offending anybody with regards to our communications. I know that a lot of emails go out, and last week there was an email that came back to say that we should rather blind copy or send our emails out to undisclosed recipients. So I wanted to find out, those who are online and those who are here today, if there is anybody experiencing problems where they don't like me sharing their email addresses in the emails that go out.
I like knowing who actually is getting it, so because frankly, if I take a quick look and I see, oh, I don't think somebody's getting it that needs to know about this, then I can forward it on.
Yeah,
I'm assuming that I have that there is no issue that forwarding on any of the documents that we have to anyone. Correct? I mean, because this is all open forum, open season, right?
The only thing that I've noticed is that sometimes when we get into discussions on certain topics, you get a lot of emails bouncing back and forth, and sometimes they get a little bit overwhelming. But if we could use a little bit more discretion in that regard as individuals, and not include people that really don't belong in it, then it might.
Or maybe, I would agree, that's probably the biggest challenge I've seen, where the flood of communications, and the unfortunate part is that, for better or worse, many of us don't read things that are mixed in there that are really important. So if there's a mechanism that we can use, such as this forum that we had discussed in the past, that would minimize that email overload, that would be helpful.
All right.
When we move to Google Drive, it'll eliminate a lot of those emails if everybody's using one. And we check it out, and it works really well. Comments in, you can see exactly who made the comments and change the edits and track, and everybody can see all the tracking on it.
All right, thank you. And then our March 24th meeting, the last 2 weeks, the County of LA mentioned that we have a venue conflict. So we do not have access to any of the conference rooms or meeting rooms here. So we're looking for an off-site venue, if anyone could help us with that. We don't really want to change the date because there is the Calvo event happening the end of March. So we would like to keep it March the 24th, but if there's anyone that could assist with hosting our meeting, that would be great. We don't have to agree on it today, but if there's anyone who has a venue that they could offer us, please let me know. Then we have Calcea's Contractors Day tomorrow in San Diego. We want to thank Jeff and Bernadette for inviting Hector to speak on behalf of SEAC. So thank you, and we will be talking about AB 2188 on a panel discussion. I think that starts pretty early in the morning.
Yeah, around 9.
I did send the flyer to everyone, and I did send it by undisclosed recipients. So. Then Sparky and Don held their single combination inspection process training last week at the City of Calabasas. It was a morning and afternoon session. They were both very full. And Sparky and Don presented and spoke about SEAC's AB 2188 briefing notes, and we want to thank Sparky very much for promoting the SEAC work, and Don as well. I know that, I don't think Don's online today. He's probably traveling because he's going to be at the event tomorrow. But thanks, Marcus, for CSE's participation and promotion there. Thank you. I don't know, Sparky, if you wanted to mention anything about the training last week.
Go ahead first.
I was just going to say is just goes with that California, not just Southern California. The same thing was done by Dawn up in Northern California, up in Fremont the day before.
All right, nice.
And Dawn used the same, that was Dawn myself doing that up north.
All right, thank you.
So
Thank you.
it was one of those things where Dawn was taking most out of this trip. Good. So there was some promoting of SEAC up there.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, John.
And by the way, you and I talked back.
With Don and I split the sessions. We had a morning session with one group of people. Afternoon was a second, an entirely different group. About 35 people in each group. As far as Don's presentation, he started off with the SEAC briefing notes, and then he went to the 19-item checklist. And I know most of the inspectors that were in the room, and it was heavily packed with inspectors. Good blend of the old timers and a good blend of some newer kids. And the newer inspectors were wide-eyed. They were very receptive. There were some building officials in there. They were very receptive. Everybody was riveted to Don's presentation. He did a wonderful job. My part of the presentation, I call it, I was pretty much putting guys in a headlock and I'm giving them the business, and I'm trying to encourage them that, look, it's 2016, it's not 1930. Building departments really need to embrace new technology in the future. You know, if we dropped a brand new college kid into a building department and didn't give him a roadmap or her a roadmap, what are you going to do? I'd venture to say they're not going to do things the way we're doing them. They're going to come up with a pretty slick process. So that was my message, and of course, letting them know that the required inspections that we're so used to doing, you know, have been there since 1930. We're doing a lot more inspections than just the required inspections. And guess what? All those things you're worried about that you think you're not going to see, you don't have to see those. You're not required to see them. So why not just use pictures? And that's where I knew this presentation was effective. Why do I know that? Because the old timers were grumbling. They didn't like what they heard. Again, the newer guys, wide-eyed. Some of the building officials, the building official for Ventura County, I talked to him after, wide-eyed, and he was taking a lot of notes. So you know if they're grumbling, you're doing something right.
Yeah.
So it's like bucking coal. Let's keep upping the coal. You know, sooner or later we'll get a diamond. Maybe those old geezers will, you know, go off into the sunset and we'll mold these newer guys. But that's kind of the overall concept of my presentation.
Two quick things I'd like to add to that, because, you know, again, we did the same thing up north as well. And I think that one of my comments will dovetail in with what Pete's going to be talking about later this morning, and that is that both of these presentations were arranged and sponsored through the local ITC and IAI chapters. So it was all up there, and it was through that mechanism. And I'm sure that Pete's going to talk further about that kind of concept in his presentation. The second thing that I wanted to note was that up north, and I don't know if you have this down south, is that every single person in the room was an AHJ. There was not a single installer to be seen. And the comment was, and Don made it in his presentation a couple times, and I think it was appropriate, is that where the heck are the installers? Because if the installers are interested, I'm sorry I'm going to be so brutally blunt about this, but if the installers are concerned about the inspectors doing this, then they should be there to support that type of situation. And the thing is that there was, I agree with you. There was a couple of guys grumbling, and the guys who were grumbling were saying, "Well, golly darn it, those installers, they got to know about this stuff. They got to know about what we have to go through in regards to inspecting." And if you guys want, I'm just going to say it, I'm a limb here, but if you guys, as the installers, want to see these inspectors be doing this, you need to be supporting them as well. You need to be there, and it's also good because then they feel that you're hearing the same thing they're hearing, and we're all on the same page and we're working together.
I think one of the issues is the way we reach out to people. You mentioned ICC and IAEI, and they're both great organizations, but their primary clientele or the primary members seem to be more the jurisdictional side. We do get, at the IAEI, we do get the industry, but I have to think there's other industry organizations that could possibly be brought in for contact. So when we have these workshops like this, we can get it to their people, okay, not just filtering down through our people, and hopefully it reaches some of the industry.
So just on that score, let me say this, at least up in the north, is that we have several of the major installers that actually show on a regular basis to our IAI, Northern California chapter. Two is that we do get out the message to those other organizations. Our distribution list is pretty incredible in that, and we do get it to those people. They are on our list. I can show you the distribution list. It shows a bunch of the solar companies. The third thing is that both Sparky and I, and I shamelessly, I let Sparky do the original drafting of the synopsis for the class, and then I stole it and used it up north. Maybe tweak maybe one sentence or two, but I shamelessly used it. Partly because I wanted to be consistent, and the second is that the way I hope that you guys have a chance to read the way Sparky wrote it. He wrote it as, this is not about for the inspectors. This is for the inspectors. This is for the installers. This is for everybody. And that was the way you phrased it. You said it as, are you an installer? You ought to be here. Are you an inspector? You ought to be here.
I'm wondering if maybe there would be some advantage to reaching out to them in their community. Like NECA, they have their meetings, they have their training and whatnot. I'm sorry.
Sorry, Marcus wants to.
I was just going to say at that point, sorry to hear that there weren't as many installers. I guess that's the trainings last week. But earlier this year, or earlier last year, we actually coordinated a few trainings, and John actually worked with you for these trainings, where we actually organized and arranged the trainings. And for most of those, we did see there were skewed likely more towards the installers and contractors. So when we organized those trainings, we had a different mechanism for reaching out to contractors when we were charged with, I guess, promoting it. So even with the list, perhaps with the next trainings, if we'd like for us to be more involved, if you do have an extensive list of
that'd be wonderful.
contractors reaching out to you, after you guys go to your next training.
And I kind of take responsibility for the training we did down here because it was the holidays. We didn't get the word out till a little bit late.
We had the same issues.
And I should have been more proactive contacting people like you and maybe even Paula saying we got to push this out to the other side of our table.
Yeah, just a quick comment to dovetail on what John said. To the installers, show up to make sure the right information is being presented too. Double check what's being said. You need to be there to make sure it's correct. Whenever I do training like this, I want the installers there. I want that perspective. I want to hear what they have to say. I want to make sure it's being presented correctly. And if we're missing something, we don't know if you're not there. So it's very helpful.
So we have webinars coming up, and we definitely want to get a very good mix in the audience.
Yeah.
And both sides and manufacturers as well as wherever we can get on there. So if you guys, whatever assistance you provide for those webinars, it'll be very helpful. I know you have an extensive database. But if we get out through our partners, help us get the word out. That's really fantastic. And you folks, Solar Cities and Borregos and others, help us get the word out.
Solar City was at our seminar.
Oh, good.
Yes, they were. Yeah.
The only one.
Well,
All right, and then we have PV Permit Design here today to do a presentation on the online solar permitting software, so that's going to be great. And Pete Jackson will also be presenting on existing PV electrical certification. And then I want to open the floor to any other announcements.
one more thing, and we got to give Solar City credit for this too. The last Ventura ICC chapter meeting, they sent an engineer for the education part of the program, and they walked through how a small PV system is designed and how their plan goes to jurisdiction. And that was very well received.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
It was very well received.
Any other announcements? We're good? Anybody online?
We're currently muted because of the mic feedback, so let me unmute you right now.
Don't have to mute them. When I start to you got to mute everybody. Mute everybody.
Don't
If
worry,
they want to
the
talk,
filter
they can
only
unmute
works with-
themselves.
The filter only works with Jeff calls it. Don't worry about it.
All right, so let's go on to the next item, Paul.
All right, so the next item is status update. We really finalized our briefing note number 3 at our last meeting. The only thing that we added in there was the additional sentence in the background section. And then there was the suggestion to remove recommendation number 3. I did share it with everyone on January the 12th, and I wanted feedback. There were only 5 that came back to me with their okays. So I don't know if it's something that we could possibly all sort of agree on and finalize here today. It was...
Sure.
I want to go to... Number 3, we don't have it. Well, I can read it to you. Okay, so what we added to the background section was some permit applications require resubmission due to insufficient preparation and understanding of codes and standards. Yeah, sorry, we don't have it.
Sorry, can you read that again?
Some permit applications require resubmission due to insufficient preparation and understanding of codes and standards. Otherwise, we can,
Why don't we,
I can,
send them out?
yeah, I'll just resend it to everyone and then ask for your feedback.
Does somebody have a digital copy on it?
Are you talking about issue statement 4?
Yeah, agree.
3, number 3.
3.
Maybe just send it out again.
Yeah, I'll send it out again.
And the change that was from what was previously listed was?
We just, at our last meeting, the staff asked to add a sentence into the background section, and it was, we added that to some permit applications require resubmission due to insufficient preparation, understanding of codes and standards. And then in the recommendation section,
Some of the reason why most staff are raised is that really kind of unbalanced in terms of the background. You know, it was heavy push towards the HJ side, and maybe there should be a little more balance with the installer side. So that's the purpose of the background.
Is it just that there's a technology difference across the moment not showing up on the screen?
well, I can go back to it later. I'll have to.
Well, that's what I was just going to ask is rather than, and from what I can hear and what I remember, I'm thinking, and I'm sorry that I didn't respond to that email. I was going to go back and find it. But I'm just asking if maybe it's like right after lunch we could just look at it real quick and just done and get it done rather than wait more time.
All right. Okay.
I'm willing to vote yes right now.
Well, you know, just so that people feel comfortable, you know, don't want to feel ramrodded, but, you know, on the flip side, you know, that gives all of us a chance to look quickly in our emails, find it, look at it during lunch, and then right after lunch, then just say, yeah, come on, let's move on. Okay.
All right.
Sorry. With that, Dad, I'll take that.
No, that's fine. Thank you.
John, you're good.
And then with briefing note number 4, at our last meeting, we We really got halfway through it, and we'd like to continue with the balance of that today. So we do have that, but we'll throw that up later on in the agenda. And then also on our UL 2703 work, the update yesterday, the County of LA held a very constructive UL 2703 meeting, and I'll bring Hector and Mustafa in to expand on the outcome from that.
Is it later on?
Oh, okay.
That's on the agenda, number 10.
All right. And then on our utility issues, we received a fair amount of feedback, mostly in the form of recommendations. And the technical group incorporated this into writing up the issue statement that we've prepared and will present later on in the meeting. The SEAC ops team worked on an ambitious and optimistic strategic plan, and Hector will present that later on in the meeting. City of San Bernardino presented the online virtual inspection demonstration. We noticed that a lot of you attended the demonstration. We received a lot of positive feedback. In fact, one of the comments that I really liked was from Jim. He said, first there was sliced bread and then came San Bernardino's virtual inspection. So that was pretty cool. And then today's meeting will be focusing mainly on reaching agreement on issue number 4 and then agreeing on the utility issue statement. And that's it. And then we'd like to move on to agenda item number 5, draft meeting summary. If we can have a motion to approve. It's in your board pack.
Motion to approve. Motion to approve. A second? I'll second. Any discussion? Comments? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes.
Right, thank you. And then we're going to have Michael and Derek do their presentation now on automating small-scale PV systems design and permitting submittals using software. Just wanted to mention that's Michael Palmquist, and this is Derek Mitchell. They've put extensive hours and effort and work into this, so thank you so much for coming through today. We know you've traveled a far distance too, so thank you.
Warmer weather. Well, thank you all for the invitation to present today to SEAC. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a little demonstration. Actually, Derek is going to do a little demonstration. First, I'd like to give you guys a little bit of an intro about who we are and what it is we've done. So I started Solar Nexus. We provide a software platform to independent sales and installation companies across the country to profitably manage their sales process, their proposals, economic analysis, and project management. Derek runs Solar Design Tool, which is a design-focused software. And what we did, I've been at this for a little while. I'm a big fan of standards, and I love what you guys are doing. Back in 2010, I got a grant from the California Solar Initiative to create a data model, a standardized data model for solar and energy efficiency projects. So we successfully completed that, and we have this great data model. Unfortunately, there was no funding to promote it, so its implementations were sparse, we'll say. The idea is that if you have a standardized way of describing all the things that we talk about, as far as PV systems go, we can teach our computer systems to talk to each other. A lot easier if the computers can talk to each other. So that's the basis of it. And so a couple years ago, we got a grant from the DOE Sunshot program. And the idea was, hey, you know what? We already spent $1 million of public money to create this great model. Let's put it out there and let's demonstrate that it actually works in real production implementation out there. And so Derek joined the team, and what we're going to present today is actually some of that in action, where Solar Nexus and other software applications can actually make a call to Solar Design Tool, provide a data model that describes the sales design. So we've got the arrays, the modules, the inverters, the string configuration, and then by answering a couple of questions, we
can actually do all the NET code calculations, we can do structural checks, and we can provide this back to whatever software is out there. Actually, can we look at some presentation? Back a couple of slides. So real quick, you have it in a picture form. What we're looking at here, the idea is, okay, we've got our contractors up here, number one, and they're using software, most of them. And the idea here is, regardless of your software package that you're using, we should be able to call these design services and be able to instantaneously, practically, do all of the required design calculations that are needed and actually generate permitting documentation. So automate a lot of this routine engineering work. And so that's what's going on here. We call SEAC design services and return these design artifacts. And we do this through an API. Again, we're using that standard data model, so all these different software programs, we teach all our software programs to read and write this model. Everybody can use it. And then, of course, the contractor can get their design artifacts and bring them to the AHJ. Standardize, get the same thing over and over again. Now, while we were doing this, of course, AB 2188 came into existence, and then the expedited CD permit toolkit was created. And so we've been hard at work, right here, hard at work actually being able to take all of that data and put it into the expedited CD permit toolkit format. What we see, a couple more slides. What I wanted to get to, no, one more slide. Okay, right here. So what we see in the future, speaking to your, getting into technology in the future, we actually could potentially remove the plan checks from even being required, from a human being involved there, because we can have the contractor doing their design, getting a full design package in a data file, passing that to the AHJ, and the AHJ employing some design check software that runs through the design, is able to check that everything is okay and automate that entire process. We don't actually have to have diagrams in order to do that. Of course, those diagrams are going to be really nice in the field, right, for inspectors and everything. But the point is, we can completely automate all of that. So we see that's something that we'd like to see in the future. We're not there yet. Obviously, it's going to take a little while. So in the meantime, we're going to do this part of it to generate the documents that can be then taken to the AHJ. And so Derek is going to do a quick demonstration using Solar Design Tool. And the idea here, of course, is you're going to create a design and in just a couple of minutes be able to actually generate the full toolkit document as well as single line diagram. Go ahead, Derek.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a project, and I'm going to import a 3D model of the house, and then we'll just go through the design process and produce the toolkit. The 3D model is something that can be done by a third party like EagleView or rootorders.com. There's also other options to start as an input. For example, you can use our tool to draw it out manually. There's also a tracing feature, not quite recommended for your permit documents, but they can start there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to run through the use case where we import a 3D model, create the electrical configuration, add some roof properties to it, and then go through a 3-step wizard to do some documents. I'm going to try to do this really fast, and then I can go back and do it again, because I'm sure you guys are probably going to have some questions. So, click the Create Project button here. This is a pre-release version of this feature. So I'm using a LA County address because I want to trigger the lookup of the LA County AHJ. But the house that I'm actually going to import is not. Okay, so I selected an address. It's giving me some nearby AHJs. I'm going to say Los Angeles County. I'm going to specify the use and occupancy classification, indicate that there's a 0 PSF ground snow load. Wind exposure category, topographical condition, standard, 110 mile-an-hour wind speed. And all that stuff is necessary in order to qualify the system for the expedited. I create the project. Next step is I'm going to import this route. I'm going to use one from rootorders.com. We don't have any strategic partnerships with these companies. If we can get models from any other format, we gladly import them. Okay, so that's the house. You'll see that some of the areas are hatched. Those are areas that we've just kind of knocked out immediately because they're like north facing or they're really small. But I'm not going to put panels on all these streets. I'm going to take one too. And for these remaining 2 roof faces, I'm going to edit the property. 3D model already knows what the pitch is and what the azimuth is. It doesn't know what the height is because the 3D model actually only includes the roof. It doesn't actually model the whole house. So you have to know what the median roof height is. So I've defined the structural properties of one of the companies. Okay, so I'm going to build this. LG 280 solar edge inverters obviously have a pretty large market share, and we get one of those. One string of 17 on 100 space. This string of 12 on the other. So that's our electrical configuration right there. Next step is to add the BOS component. Some basic questions. I'm going to include standalone system, low side connection. 7600 has a maximum output current of 32 amps, so it works. And this is where we'll configure the conductors and conduits. Specify conduit 1. We have wire length here. Something that's worth pointing out at this point is that we're defaulting to 60-degree terminal rating, And the maximum wire temperature is the design high, which is the ASHRAE 2% drywall temperature, plus whatever the correct adder is for the conduit on the roof. So every time I change the distance from the roof, it's going to change the adder. So you can go in there and override the temperature. So it's configured all the wires, and it's telling me right here that the system is eligible. If I click this, it'll show me all the different checks that are going to be printed on the toolkit document. And if anything failed, it would say why, and then there'd be like a link to go check it out, because it'll fail if you don't include all the information. So then you click expedited permit plan. Save it now. County of Los Angeles Building Permit Department information. So one of the big tricks here is that there are different AHJs, and a lot of them do accept the toolkit document, but they accept the toolkit document and they need another PDF, and a PDF here, and a PDF there. And we're not going to be able to program all of the variations between the AHJs. So what we do is we have an AHJ database, and when a user, is trying to submit to an AHJ, if no one else has submitted to that AHJ before, they're going to come to a form, and they're going to have to kind of explain what the preferences are for that AHJ. With LA County, they have a specific header on their form, and we allow for up to like 4 extra data points to be added to the header. And they also don't have it added in here right now, but they have some additional documents that need to be included. That includes grounding and bonding, which is a page that shows full detail of when you use bugs. And there's also a waiver or building permit with contractor.
The permit structure too, you have that form too, right?
Well, what it does is the user comes in there, he lists that, and then in the future, any other user that comes in there is going to see, oh, look, I have to add this form later. So we're going to generate the toolkit document, and then we give you a link to the other documents that you use. Okay, so it's showing me a roof base here, and I need to just specify some of the layout parameters.
Is that giving you the clear path for firefighters on that?
Yeah, it does. So you see a little hatch on the top, on the ridge, and the 2 rakes. Those are 3-foot clearances. That was done automatically when we created the layout. But you can, when you're doing that layout, you can adjust it. Because let's say, if you got a hip roof and you don't have any modules on the adjacent roof, if it's default, you put 18 inches there, but you can run it all the way to the edge, and you'll be able to change that. But that's during the design process.
But that's manually, or the software actually sees that?
The software will by default include some setbacks, but what it doesn't do at this time is adjust the setbacks depending on your layout. So for like a hip roof, or a roof with dips and valleys, it'll default to I think 18 inches, and then you can adjust it. And giving us some options for that. You'll have to know what the weight of the racking system is. You don't have that in the database yet. We'll do the next group. This is the value-based extrapolation. Okay, and we're offering 2 different ways to do the site plan. So we can print what we we already did with the 3D model. The user doesn't need a 3D model. They can come in there without any pictures or without doing the layout. If they do that, then they're going to have to upload their own PDF or image of that. I'm going to go ahead and generate one with what we designed. This is the document it's going to create. And at this point, the internet needs to work because it's using a third-party service to convert it to PDF. Yeah. Okay. So download this. And two of these documents won't be included for typically you only get this. But this one right here at the top is the return it. And this is just kind of instructions for the user. So it's going to give them information about the AHJ. It's going to tell them what the required pages are. So the first one is the one that we generate. And then it's also indicating that you should include the data sheet, fire classification rating for the racking system, racking engineering report, and so on. And it pulls the reference to the different documents that are required by document. And actual permit right here. Okay, so this is the eligibility checklist, which goes through some high-level requirements. It actually doesn't include every single requirement. Some of the requirements are actually kind of defined in line in the simple plan, where if this, then use comprehensive. But all those checks are done beforehand. We have a structural criteria form for each one of the roof faces. And look on top, and that's where the custom information is that is required for LA County. It highlights the correct cells. Here's the single diagram. And there's our layout. In this release, this is what it's going to look like. One thing we do have to do is add one more screen where the user can specify the location of the equipment. That's going to be not in the first release, but in the first release. And that's it. So, he's done.
Question.
Yeah.
You probably did it, and I just didn't see it because of my 55-year-old eyes, but was there a place where you input the existing service size, main breaker size, that information?
Okay. So, I did it really fast. I didn't show you the output of that. Okay, so after I did the electrical configuration, where we're just matching the modules to the inverters, I then went through a BOS design wizard, and I selected components. I think I selected an external disconnect. We went to the next screen, and there was a screen where I selected EMC conduit, and I mentioned the maximum wire temperature. So when I click that, it configured everything. And you can view it by going to the report list and clicking. We offer two wire schedules. There's one that just shows the basic properties of every wire run, and there's another one that also includes the capacity calculation. So it shows your basic capacity at both the insulation temperature rating and the terminal temperature rating, and then it shows your temperature correction factors, your fill factors for conduit, and then it shows what conditions of the capacity is. So I can print that out right now.
But there's a screen where you told the program whether it was a 125 amp service with a 100 amp main breaker or a 200 amp service with a 200 amp
you fully configured it, you're going to see that it's not eligible. It's only your top. It's eligible for the toolkit document.
The path is for small PG, so it just means line A between the main gate. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And you can go in there and draw an area on the ground and specify it.
So one thing I did want to mention, so this is what Derek showed you is actually that's the full application. And what we've done is we created, he has an API which doesn't provide all of the functionality yet, but we've already done integrations with Solar Nexus as well as a website called pvpermitdesign.com. And the idea here is that we're trying to make this functionality available to everyone very simply without requiring them to pay for some specific software package, right? So pvpermitdesign.com is made for maybe somebody who only does a permit, a couple of them a year, and they don't want to buy this fancy software. They can go there and they can just input on a one-time basis, can input all their information and get the permit documentation that way as well. And I mean, we could actually show a quick demo of that.
Yeah, we got that
much shorter.
One question: the single line diagram that came up looked very familiar. Is that the one that's in the guidebook and basically just spelled out?
Yeah, that whole list of that 8-page document is the toolkit that is being completely maintained by the single energy, originally developed by Solar ABC.
Yeah, Bill Brooks participated on our project team, verifying calculations and the engineering approach.
Okay, so we'll run a video of key components.
But the API is really intended on any other software providers out there. If they would like to add that, anybody who's already spent the time to input the customer, the site, they have a sales design already completed. Don't redo that again. Take that data and just pass it in, and we can read it, figure out what's needed as far as balance the system, ask those questions about how you want to do your wiring, and so on.
Yeah, and you can adjust the wiring after you've done the configuration, which is the thing where you can upsize it. When you upsize it, it will automatically upsize. And if you want to see what the calculations are, there's a PDF that it produces where we show all of the NEC calculations for every single wire run. It's basically one page for each wire run. So it shows all the wire properties, shows the properties of the contact. For example, like if it's a string, it can give you information about what the power source is. Then it'll do the calculations from minimum and maximum values as defined by NEC, and then it's going to show comparison to whether it passes or fails. And is that in the video?
I just showed the single line. So. But if you go onto the website.
All right, so I'll let Michael narrate this.
Okay, so real quick, of course, we're just going to provide the basic customer information and the location, of course, customer name, information that goes on to the documentation. This one's pretty simplified because we're assuming that the base design is already done, maybe using another piece of software or even on paper, whatever. So this is going to be someone who's just taking a sole project and going and creating the design document. They need to specify which PV module, using the search box, it's in the Solar World 70. Create the solar array. In this case, we don't need to do the layout and stuff. That's already been done in this particular case. So all we really need to know is how many modules on each array. So in this case, we're doing a couple of different arrays, southeast and southwest. Simple input. So we've got our arrays there. Now we need to define our inverter that we used. I think I did a microinverter in this one. Yeah, I didn't say 715. List, select. This knows that it's a microinverter. It's a 1-to-1 ratio in this particular case, so it automatically populates quantity.
actually narrated audio. Okay, so we've got our basic system design now, and now we click the Create Permit Design. And so look, obviously, it's a different view, and it's not quite as detailed yet. We're using the initial version of the API. So what kind of interconnection? Do a load side connection in this case. It's asking you if you want to use an AC, you want to combine the AC in a subpanel, branch circuits in subpanels. Yeah. Including a production meter that would go into the diagram as well. Some options as far as the grounding of the rack and whether or not you're using a bare or protected ground wire. And then now it knows what all the different circuits are, and so it lists all the different circuits, again showing you have the opportunity to select different kinds of conduit, what the lengths of each of those circuit runs is going to be, D-rate, and once you set those up, save, and you're done with the design. So I just updated the distances, essentially just asking for the length of the runs from the array of each branch circuit to the combiner. And some options as far as what how the documents are output, and you can get CAD files as well. This is an additional feature in addition to the one that this is available right now. Yes, this is live. Right, you can go to pdpermitdesign.com. It's free right now, and you can get the NEC code compliance report that Derek was talking about and the basic single line diagram. It doesn't have the expedited toolkit documents available yet. That's partially because the API doesn't reflect the structural portion yet. That's the next step in our development. So one of the more standard single line diagrams. That's it. Questions?
Oh, yeah, this is great because I think I saw the demo last year at SEAC, so this is terrific. Do you have any numbers on how many application systems submitted using the free version that's currently live?
I would have to go back and look. We haven't been promoting it yet. We've pretty much been asking some key customers to use it. I have exposed it within Solar Nexus. Some of the Solar Nexus customers are using this version. We've had really good reports, especially on the NEC code compliance documents, because installers have turned those in, and the building officials have really liked that because it verifies all of the wire sizing and the circuit breaker sizing and everything in the document. It's on the order of probably, there are a few customers using it too, so I think it's probably in the hundreds maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. So the single line diagram that you saw just now, that's something that we have been providing as a service for many years. So we have kind of a lot of different feedback from our customers when we were doing that, and then we automated it. So it only works for residential size systems, 1 to 2 inverters, typically under 20 kW. But yeah, that feature's been live on the website for probably 3 or 4 months.
And what's sort of the next steps for deployment? At least the version that's been customized in California, customized with the patents?
Yeah, so that hopefully will be released in 2 weeks.
Well,
I've been saying that for a while.
Yeah,
that'll really close.
It'll be limited to Solar Design Tool at first, only within that app. With make updates to the API, and then we have to make those implementations in pdpermitdesign.com as well as in Solar Nexus. And if anybody else, anybody can do it. Magenta Solar City, anybody can use it, right? Any other application, large
large to small, we'll make it equally available to everybody.
Yeah, our plan is to first hit up our LA customers and kind of work with them to make sure that improves.
Are you planning to have a drawdown column that would have the different municipalities because of their specialized quirks or requirements?
Yes and no. So we have a database of all the administrative positions, so all of the incorporated places in all the counties. And what happens is when a person provides their address, we do a lookup and we give them a list of all the ones that are situated nearby. And they pick it, and when they pick it, and then they go through the process, they'll be prompted to either approve what's in there or to complete it themselves. So we're not curating a database of AHJs, but we are trying to crowdsource it. And right now, we're not collecting a lot of data on that. We're just basically, the data points we're trying to collect right now are contact information, address, whether or not additional information needs to be included in the header so that it's accepted by the AHJ, whether or not the AHJ accepts an expedited permanent plan, whether or not they accept our expedited permanent plan, and also what additional documents they're requiring with that. But we're not collecting data that would be needed to create conventional.
Any other questions? Thank you very much. Good job. Thank you.
Should we take a 5-minute break because we need to set Pete Jackson up?
Well, while we're doing that break, so March 24th, we can be at the UL office in Brea just for.
Oh, excellent.
So, on Carroll Highway, we don't want to go somewhere else, but just to confirm with the site manager.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
We'll be there on the...
You'll see the details and then I can forward it out. Thank you.
So Brea, for people to know, so but what Brea is, it's 57 down near 57 and 5 basically, roughly where it is. So it's just, it's very easy access. It's easy access for people that are flying in. If you are flying in, you fly into Ontario Airport. It's just a quick run down the road. Or you can go to LAX if you receive its interest. But flying into Ontario is easy and you get there. The second is that for those of you driving around, even for Pete coming down from Bakersfield, it'll be easy to get to.
Great. Thanks, John. Awesome.
Very close to the freeway. No, we're doing it.
If any of you want to have your portrait photos taken now, we have the photographer, yeah.
I forgot my boots here.
You don't need one.
Yeah, we finally have enough information.
Closer to San Diego.
Yeah, that's why they were great.
Brea, and so when you know where you're at, you're up 5, just 5 plus 5. So you got that.
Yeah, we like that.
Okay, we're ready. You need a mic.
Only to shout you down.
Okay. I didn't need to collect my vegetables.
Forget the bad. So bad.
Everybody's off. Get the picture. Okay, folks, everybody get back.
Like a break. Oh, yeah.
Set. Are we ready? Is that everybody?
Lost a few.
I can give them a couple of minutes. Okay.
Are they out in the hall?
The bathrooms are kind of small here.
It's a long walk to it?
You can only get so many people in there at one time.
Is it a long walk to it?
Not really.
Can I go pull them out?
Limited capacity.
It feels like it, though.
Oh, they. Well, you know, it's just as it is. Nothing will stop it.
Hard to get back to our boss. Yeah, that's good.
Well, there we go.
Round two.
We're waiting on Sparky. All around you, Sparky.
I had to make room for more water.
Well, thank you. Thank you for giving me this forum. And for those of you I haven't met yet, we were one of the SEAC, so the Chief Electrical Inspector State Bakersfield. And the strength of this group and groups like it is its diversity. Having the different stakeholders all bringing perspective and experience is definitely our strength. But that can turn into our weakness too, when maybe not all the stakeholders are here, and or other perspectives aren't shared. And I noticed as we were talking about the training briefing note last year, there was some perspectives missing. There's been some work with certifications related to TV that wasn't mentioned and is not widely known by this group. So I want to present some today that you may or may not be aware of. And I'm not suggesting that this is all of it. That's the point. And if we're going to put ourselves in a position to recommend solutions to the industry, we better be aware of everything that's out there available. Whether we can recommend it or not is a different story, but we need to be aware of it. So I'm going to look at 5 today that are TV related and give you just a little bit different perspective maybe on how to look at what's relevant to TV. We'll go through very quickly. We'll do any of these justice. This is just to listen for you. So if you're interested in them or you want to know more, you're going to have to look into it deeper. I'm not trying to sell you on any of them today. We don't have time for that. I could do a 4-hour presentation on every one of these. You know, if we had to. That's how involved some of them are. I'll beat you to the punch. I'll mention some up here today, and you'll say, the HJ in my area has that cert, and he's a complete moron. It's totally silly. And you know may be right, but remember, when you drove to work today or you drove here today, you were surrounded by people on the road that had driver's license. It doesn't mean they all know how to drive. So people's confidence, work ethic, how organized they are, that's a different issue than certification. So always keep that in mind. The certifications don't solve those problems, but that doesn't mean they're not needed or not valid. The first thing I want to do is give you just a little bit of a different perspective, because I think part of the problem when we talk about PV certification training is if we don't have the right perspective going in, and I'm speaking more on the electrical end of things, we become our own worst enemy. Sometimes we start going down a road that takes us farther from where we need to end up. We cause our own problems. So the way I want to approach this, especially in terms of code, some of these will be code related, some of them are will include engineering and installation experts, but the PV industry is a component of the overall electrical industry. It's a slice of it. It's an important slice, a great slice, but it's just a slice of it. And in the same way, when we talk about code, MC articles that cover specifically the PV industry, 690 and 705, are just a component of the overall code. And that's because chapters 1 through 4 of the NEC apply, except as modified by Article 690 and 705 as it relates to PV installation. And that chapter 1 through 4 is really important. And that's typical. That's the way the code is designed. If you look at hospitals and healthcare facilities, they're covered by Article 517. So chapters 1 through 4 apply, except as modified by 517. Hazardous locations, 500 through 510, and so on. There's a lot more. One thing I'll add is that most of these later chapters actually add more rules to the base rules. If you think of the base rules of chapters 1 through 4, Article 517 adds extra layers of rules there. 500 to 510 generally is adding some extra layers of rules, more regulation. So the first 4 chapters of the NEC apply to all installations, including PV, except as modified by chapters 5, 6, 7, and in this case it's 690 and 705 for PV. And why is that? Well, because it makes sense. You've got to address the unique nature of PV systems. It's not the same as wiring your house or wiring the hospital or building a refinery. It's a different animal, so we have to approach it differently. We have to address those unique differences. But this is the key part when I start talking about some certification as it relates to code. Article 697.05 expertise is not possible without a corresponding knowledge of the correct application of chapters 1 through 4. If you were to ask me what's more important for a PV certification, I'd say chapters 1 through 4. Because a lot of the problems I run into is because people are only looking at 690 and they read it as if they say this doesn't make sense. Well, it's not going to unless you understand the base document. So far more important to be certified, in my opinion, if you want to be clear on what the code requirements are to know chapters 1 through 4 demonstrate certification. Then you can open up 690 and understand what it's saying and what it's not saying. And something else, I mentioned that in 517 or 500 to 510 actually make the rules harder, if you will. Contrary to popular belief, Article 690 and 705 actually relax many of the base rules of chapters 1 through 4. I'll give you a couple of examples. There's not any other place in the NEC where we're allowed to put conductors open, meaning not in a conduit or raceway, exposed on buildings, except in 690.31. It gives us that option if we're using the correct type of conductors, and we can get up to 1,000 volts. When I'm on the roof of a commercial building, many times I'll point, looking at a PV installation, I'll point over to the air conditioners on that commercial roof, and I'll say, you know, those air conditioners operate at 480 volts, not continuous load. They can be turned off by the service. They got an overcurrent device at the supply and a fuse disconnect at the unit. Yet we make you run those in conduit. But these 1,000 volt conductors, they can't be turned off, certain portions of it, unless the sun goes down. And our continuous load, you can install those exposed. Now that's fine because there's rules that cover that, and that's the nature of the system. But that's a relaxation of the base rules. Panel bus rating. The only place in the code can we supply some bus bars with more higher supply in terms of overcurrent protection than they're rated for. We can do that in 705.12 for good good reason. But again, that's a relaxation of base rules over current protection. There's no place else in the NEC. I'm saying no place else. You can probably find some place where I'm wrong, but in general, where we can combine smaller conductors into a larger conductor without the benefit of open current protection on the smaller conductors. We can do that. 690.9 allows us to do that because that's the nature of the system. It's the current limited source. As long as we stay within the rating of the fuse rating of the module string, the module used in the string, then we can combine them without open current protection. So it's a relaxation of base rules. We need to be aware of those, but you need to know base rules to do that. One last thing on this code perspective. We're not using the fine software that they showed us yet in my jurisdiction, so I'm doing all the residential plan review currently. And I can honestly say that most of my correction notices or plan comments result from violations of chapters 1 through 4, not 690 and 705. It's base rules that are understood. And if I had to pick the most common one that comes up for residential PV, it's that number 10 is used for a 35 and 40 amp circuit. It's a violation of 240.4T that says maximum overcurrent protection for any number 10 conductor, regardless of the installation type, is 30 amps. But someone or maybe somebody else's software is putting a 35 amp overcurrent protection in a panel for a 6 kW inverter or a 40 amp breaker for a 7 kW, and then putting number 10 in there. Because, well, if you read the wire filter, the wire 690, if you read the capacity chart, the wire is good for that amount of capacity, but we're limited by 240.4 that says 30 max. So, again, a real common violation that may not be understood because it's not part of 690 or 705. So let's look at quickly. We're not quite there yet. I can't see my screen, so I can't see what's coming. So in my opinion, meaningful certification as it relates to code, NEC certification, installers, inspectors cannot be made simply on 690 or 705. We can't go look for a cert out there that only covers those chapters, demonstrates the knowledge of those chapters. In my opinion, and say that you're certified or qualified based just on that. So some of the certifications we're going to look at today, some are NEC-based, strictly code. Others involve design and installation requirements. The first one I want to show you is called the Electrical Training Alliance, formerly known as the NJATC, National Joint Apprenticeship and Training Committee. UL Knowledge Services has a certified PV installer, both a course and an exam. The International Association of Electrical Inspectors has several certs. I'll just look at one called the Certified Electrical Inspector, and an online PV online training that's available. ICC has electrical certs. You might say, well, they don't have a PV cert. Well, they do. If I'm certified in the NEC, I'm certified PV. Now, do I know everything I need to know? Well, I may or I may not. That's an individual choice, and training is always needed. But saying I'm not would be like saying, well, I'm certified in the whole NEC, but I don't know how it relates to Article 517. We don't get a certification for each chapter of the code. And good exams, which ICC and IEI and others have, cover the entire code. And we shouldn't leave out the requirement in this state. Electrical workers in the state that work for an electrical contractor doing PV work, some portions of the PV system will be covered by this. Have to be a certified electrical worker, and there's a test, an exam, and experience requirements for that. Does that mean they're qualified for PV? It should. If they don't, that's on them, but yeah, it should. It's electrical work. You installers, I'm sure, will agree with me. PV systems, especially on a house, on a residence, are not that complicated. It's pretty simple stuff. And it seems like we make it a lot more complicated than basic electrical work. So let's look at the Electrical Training Alliance, NJATC. They have apprenticeship and journeyman certification. It's been around for a long time. I'm going to say 70, 80 years. But the national system run by or owned by, created by the Electrical Union, the IBEW, and the Contractors Association, the National Electrical Contractors Association. There's 7,000 ETA apprentices currently nationwide. It's a 5-year program. graduate, you must complete 8,000 hours of on-the-job training in various parts of the trade, which could and would include EV. It certainly does in my area. That depends on where you are in the United States. 960 hours of classroom. In the state of California, the school or the system is accredited by the Department of Apprenticeship Standards and the local community college district. You will get college credits for going to this and graduating. In other states, they accredit it differently. However, the source material is all accredited. The instructors in my area, this is different by area, but are required to be a graduate of the apprenticeship system itself. NTI, National Training Institute, which is a special school, 4-year school, summer program, just for the instructors of the system. When I graduated from it, it was at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville, currently being run out of Ann Arbor, Michigan, but very good school to train the trader for industrial materials. Here, you can't see all this, so I'll just read some of it to you, but there's 5 different sample tracks that a school can use on your way. And it depends on the area. So a local school or local JATC can get one or all or pieces of all 5 of these tracks. And what you'll notice, though, if you look through it, every one of them has basic DC theory, basic AC theory, conduit bending, blueprint reading, the basics of the trade. What do you need to know to install a TV system? You need to have that conduit. You need to know how to read the blueprints. You need to know how to terminate conductors. That's all covered. In addition, you get advanced training for distributed generation. For TV, just one form of distributed generation, but that's included. TV's included. If you look at the very top one, there's actually a distributed generation track that includes course material specifically for TV installation. And there's all that same material plus TV1, TV2. I want to pass this around. I do need this back. But this is 7 years old. This was the course book we were using 7 years ago, and for the NJTC program. Both journeyman and apprentice. I want you to just take a quick look through it so you can see what they're looking, what's being covered from top to bottom, and see if you think it's complete. Just take a quick look. And remember, this is 7 or 8 years old, so it's been updated since then. We're doing better now, but that's what we were doing 7 years ago. So in any case, whatever track you go through, whatever group of installations you go through, you get it all. Code, transformers, motor controls, explosion proof, all the elements of the trade, and residential as well. There's a typical school. That's the one in my area. Every county has either one like this or access to one like this. Smaller counties have to join together, but generally the system's run by county. It's not a county jurisdiction. It's just the way they divide up the areas. And every apprentice will attend a school something like this. So blended online training. You can see all the course material. There's a list of books right there. That's the books for the whole 5-year program on your right. Classroom, and also shop time, hands-on learning. You learn again the conduit, to weld things together, how to wire things, motor controls, and this school, this one I have the TV lab. So they're building TV systems and learning how to do it hands-on as well in the classroom. So are you certified in TV when you come out of that? Well, yes, you're a certified journeyman. And that includes TV in this case. I can say that's just a part of life of the electrical industry. And not the most complex life, actually. It's new maybe to a lot of people. That makes it seem more complex, but it's really not. But also as a journeyman, you can get a solar PV certification where you're already a journeyman, but you need to go back and learn more about the specifics of TV. They'll go through a workbook like that and get certified. They have a certification for that. Sure, you're a journeyman already. Now that's paid off in this area, this is where I'm from, because they've had 500 journeyman wiremen working exclusively in the TV field for the past 2 years. They're certified, and they're doing the work they've been doing it for 2 years. And LA County would have numbers the same or better because you've got so much work out in the desert. So it's, there's certification there, they're being used, and there's qualified workers out there already. UL Knowledge Services, the division of UL, not the same one John's from, right? The same source company, there's a division there. But UL Knowledge Services has a certified PV installer training and exam program. There it is. Go to the website, UL Knowledge Services. We'll focus in a little bit here. There's an exam, and there's a certified PV system installer. And if you read that, what it says, and I'll pass something around in a moment, that if you're a qualified electrical worker already, and we have ways we set it up to demonstrate that, you can go through some hands-on training and take an exam, and if you do that, this organization will give you the title of a certification of a PV installer. Oh, let me go back and look at the bottom page there, the bottom list. UL certified PV installers list. There's actually a list of those that have gone through this time. So what is this? Well, this was developed back in 2009 when a group put together by UL identified the primary tasks to building a PV system and then built out those tasks. I'm going to pass that around. What you see on the screen, I'm going to pass around. That's just the first page that identifies the task. And each of those tasks is worked out to excruciating detail. And I was one of the group that worked it out, so it wasn't excruciating. But anyway, take a look at it, pass it around. And you'll get an idea, though, of the detail and the thought that's gone into this and the certification that exists.
I think it's good to know that it sounds good.
Who were the subject matter experts that UL brought together to put this together? A gentleman named Jason Atkins with Pro Solar, Bill Brooks, Brooks Engineering, Jonathan Cadd with IAEI at the time, Dan Carradine with the contractor Baker Electric, Jim Dollars, IBEW, myself, Michael Johnson, NECA, National Electrical Contractors Association, and Rhonda Parker's City of Palo Alto. So you can see there was definitely an attempt to get a well-rounded group to put this certification together. And from UL, a gentleman named Alan Hoover was in charge of the project, assisted by Pam McKinley, and a lady named Jamie Thomas, she wasn't with UL, she was a facilitator, brought in excellent, just kept this very productive. And there we all are, with smiling faces. The good thing is what else they gave us. So they kept us awake and kept us there. And what you see behind this, well, let me show you who's there. There's Alan, there's Pam, and there's Jamie. But what you see behind us on the board was the origin of what I'm passing around. That's where we identified what are the tasks and what's the expertise needed to build a PV system, what's the knowledge base needed. And what I like about this is what we produced that resulted in what you see. This was done in San Jose. The date there is November 9th to 11th, 2009, so over 6 years ago. And what I like about this is two things. We identified some prerequisite knowledge, so we all agreed that anyone who's going to be a qualified PV installer or inspector needs to have a base electrical knowledge of NEC chapters 1 through 4, AC theory, DC theory, electrical systems, blueprint reading, and then right underneath that at the bottom, we said check DOA qualifications and training requirements. We identified for every state in the nation how you could identify who has the base qualified background. Some states have certifications, that's the level. Others don't. Maybe they have an apprenticeship system though. Maybe they have a local trade school. But we identified it for everyone. If they had nothing, we could identify just through work experience. So we had to identify who was qualified. The other thing I like is down here. Again, this is 6 years ago, future trends and concerns. We identified those as being smart grid evolution, code updates, technology changes, increasing safety requirements, do-it-yourself PV installation, changes in government and utility subsidies, something being talked about today, and explosive growth is in the industry requiring more qualified installers. That sounds like a lot of the stuff we talk about in this group right now, doesn't it? The same issues. So sure. Those are real issues. They were real then, they're real now, and they continue. So after 9 months of hard work, we had a grand opening. UL had a PV installation lab training school at their campus in North Carolina, Research Park, North Carolina. And that's where the kickoff was. We also put together the exam in that 9 months and the answers, and then went to the final result and the school that was developed. So I don't know if the hands-on school is still there or being used, but there's a hands-on school, PV modules, build the whole array, do it correctly, pass the test. Now you're certified if you have the base knowledge. The IAI, the International Association of Electrical Inspectors, has a certified electrical inspector, residential and master. What I like about this one, I don't know if you can see that, there's a heavy prerequisite requirement before you can even sit for the exam. But if you meet those prerequisites, you can then sit for the exam. If you can pass that, you still have to document 50 inspections and write a 2-page report on each one and turn that in, and that all has to be overseen by somebody who's already passed or gone through the program. So does that include PV? It certainly does, because you have to hit all areas of the code. Is it strictly PV? No, it's the whole code, but certainly makes you a qualified PV inspector, or should. Also, the IEI more recently has developed a PV online training course, which I think someone was on today. Taken here, but in any case, it's accredited. You can earn CEUs for it, and it's PV training on top of your base knowledge. ICC, International Code Council, has electrical certification, residential, commercial, and plan review. I don't see PV out there. Is it included? In my opinion, it is.
Currently, there's talk going between ICC and IAI to develop a separate PV certification.
I think a lot of got that.
Yeah, they sent out a survey.
Yeah. So
That talk is proceeding.
and that, I'm not against that. That's great, because that PV certification will indicate you understand chapters 1 through 4 as well, and that's the key point. So the more, the better. And I think even these three are changing format somewhat as we speak. But currently, that's what most of us that have these tabs, one of those three or all of those three. But again, I think I'm trying to get away from the mindset that, well, PV is something different. It shouldn't be. It's part of the code. It's a slice of the electrical industry, and it's conductors and conduits.
You know, I think one of the issues is that so many of our PV inspectors now are combination inspectors. And they don't really, you know, they have a certain amount of understanding of chapters 1 through 4, but they don't go into the level that, like your electrical certification would. Perhaps the residential electrical certification could, you know, include solar PV, and then that way it would be encompassed into that. But that's one of the issues I see right now is that the combo inspector, you get a contract inspector come in. He's got residential certification, he's got combination inspection certification, but you don't really know what his abilities are with PV.
You don't. But I don't really, you know, to add to that, I don't know what his abilities are in regard to the certifications he does have, because honestly, there's more code rules involved in inspecting a house than there is in PV system, or just many. Now, are they different? Of course, different animals. But I think that's part of the issue, the problem. I think part of what drives groups like this is just another slice of it. It's different, just like hospitals are different, like this is different, that's different. Does that mean that everyone has to start knows what they're doing? No. Does everyone that drives a car with a license know what they're doing? No. That's a different issue. But that's kind of the perspective I'm trying to shift. But if you're an electrical worker in the state of California and you work for a C10 contractor, under the defined work, which I think is 50 volts or more, you have to be certified, which means you have to be either a registered apprentice or trainee, or you have to have 8,000 hours of documented experience and pass an exam. So there's different levels for different portions of the electrical industry, you know, fire alarm technician, low voltage technician, different requirements. But the base requirement for someone who's qualified to do it all is 8,000 hours and pass the PV. It should, again, is bending conduits for a PV system any different than bending conduits for a commercial rough-in? No. Are there ways to handle conductors and terminate them different? Not necessarily. I mean, they're specific to the installation, but they're still core same type of conductors, understanding what installations are for what purpose. Same trade experience. So, yes, it's relevant to PV. You know, if not, it should be again. That's the shift I'm trying to push. And of course, if you are a certified journeyman electrician in the state of California, to maintain that certification, it requires 32 hours CEUs every 3 years to keep it. So you have to go back and get more training, and that's where PV training can come in. That'd be a great thing for someone to get to maintain their certification. So again, very quick look. Just want to kind of maybe shift the perspective a bit, make you aware of some of these. I encourage you to look them up yourself, do your own research. Again, I'm not suggesting that these are all that's out there. If any of you guys know of more, bring it to our attention, because as we talk about certification and training of PV workers, we can't leave this stuff out.
Two certifications that are probably worthy of at least acknowledgement: ABCEP, which has thousands of certificates nationwide and focuses heavily on the electrical attributes of the PV system. RISE, which some may have heard of, grew out of the National Roofing Contractors Association and is a certification
Muted.
accreditation.
So that's, you know, another very valid one that you have to be aware of. But it's not, that's the key here. That's a good one. And valid, but not the only one. So
Agreed.
we have to keep them all in mind.
Well, that's the other thing is there is one PV installation, just the electrical aspect.
And I'm painfully aware of that with the work I do.
And that's correct. And this was focused on electrical, but that's part of the challenge with PV. When I brought PV certification to code knowledge, I went into electrical code. That's not the only code that's involved in installation of the PV system. So,
Thank you very much, Pete. I think the message here is build our knowledge base. It's going to really depend on you guys and to do work with, bring that information towards us, and then that'll help us doing our work. So good information, Pete. Thank you. Right, next item, bring it up. Discuss goals. This is really more than just goals. My version strategic plan, 1 page, very simple, hopefully easy to understand. Yes. Our mission, I think we've seen it quite a lot. Our vision statement, maybe you have not. This, of course, it's an evolving thing. And the vision, of course, is something that's out there, challenging to reach, and the work that we do every day will help us one of these days achieve it. There's actually 2 vision statements: SEAC proactive and collaborative efforts to support community sustainable.
Muted.
Isn't there another wording that but anyway.
Well, I don't know if you want to wordsmith it now.
No
but
wordsmith
I just wanted
today.
to- yeah.
The rule. No wordsmith.
Yeah. But I thought it was significant enough to mention.
Thank you. We'll definitely take that into consideration. So, goals. So, how do we get the goals? So, Paul and I and a few others got into a room and did a quick SWOT analysis. We got familiar, threats, and we're kind of looking more of a short term instead of a 10-year period, kind of a short term. Some of the things that came up is the products that we generate here are our briefing notes. That's the key things we generate. And it's a target that we shoot for this year. And we're saying 24 briefing notes in 2016. That may be, I don't know, it's aggressive. It's not. I thought that was pretty good, and I think there's a way to get there, and it requires that we do things a little bit differently. So our proposal is this. Today we're going to talk about the utility issue statements. And part of what we do here, we'll draft up those statements. Not necessarily that to be perfect when it's done here, but we've got to get it enough that we understand what the issue is, that we can then take those issues to the technical group. So who's the technical group? So there is no defined, hey, this is the technical group. We have hired these people, experts. We don't have that. We don't have those resources. You guys are the technical group. Right now, we have some really good volunteers that put in a lot of hours to do that work, but it doesn't say those are the people. If anybody wants to participate in the technical group, we welcome that participation. But there has to be a certain level of commitment, because that's a lot of work. And there has to be specific meeting times, conference call times, people that get onto Google Drive and put in their time to really wordsmith those documents. So a certain level of commitment is needed. And once technical groups to really draft up the briefing notes. We have, not just this is our very preliminary draft. We come here and we're submitting to staff. No, once the technical groups really focus and come up with a document that is ready to bring here, and it's, hey, we can just raise our hands. This is awesome. So we want the idea is technical group prepares a very robust, complete briefing note. Paula and I, we're going to be the quality control folks because we see all the briefing notes, and we're going to engage some of those group discussions. And we'll look at it from a quality perspective, thoroughness, consistency. The language is kind of consistent with what it said before, and to be sure that the perspectives are being captured. You mentioned earlier that we include, good perspectives from a lot of people as much as possible, or diverse groups. So we want to make sure that's there. But that job is really goes back to the technical group. Make sure you're thinking through that. Who's going to be looking at the briefing note? What is the message? Make sure we capture those diverse. So when we look at it and we say, hey, this looks great. It's ready to go to SEAC. It comes here. That's the briefing note. And we're going to attempt to do this. And I'm really asking you to trust an attempt that we're not going to wordsmith it. Okay? I know sometimes that can be a lot of fun, but it does take up a lot. It does take up a lot of our valuable time, but we want to give it a try. We definitely want to give it a try, especially the briefing notes coming up. So let's trust that we can do that, and trust the folks that are the volunteers to do the work on the technical group. And let's try it, okay? So I'm asking you to just try this to see how it works. And so we're going to get to 24 briefing notes within the next 12 months, actually 11 months. We really have to try to do this. And if it works, awesome. We're going to get a lot of product out there.
Just some breaking news. We just got word that the CPUC has passed the proposed decision that came out yesterday for net metering 2.0 by a vote of 3-2. So that, I think, is very good news overall for any of the solar industry participants. The only thing that was, I guess, viewed as challenging is that all customers in Southern California and PG&E territory will be mandated to go on time of use rates when net metering 2.0 takes effect in the coming months. So at least that issue is now resolved. Yeah. This is my Solar Pioneer beard now.
Okay. All right. Just curious. Question. So I just want to make sure I understand how you're envisioning this. Is that when we started out, we would have these question there is that on the wordsmithing, I agree with you that certainly the wordsmithing is problematic, but certainly we've experienced that a lot in this room, this very room. My question would be is that on that score, is there a way that we could send out with when we send out those particular briefing notes for consideration, is to just do a quick straw poll maybe, and that, because I think there's going to be times, I kind of feel like we're kind of like a code making panel in that the code making panel may tell the task group you need to go back and do some more work. I hope that we still have that ability to say,
oh, definitely. I could provide some clarity here. It's that we're not intending to cut anyone who's not in the technical group out of the conversation of the briefing notes. What we're planning is, since we're going to move the file from the Google Drive, there's certain avenues. So let's say we set a deadline for anyone in the entire committee can look at what we've drafted and leave comments, and then the technical group will finalize it and hopefully bring a product to the meeting where it's up for a vote. And if there's something glaringly wrong, then we can send it back for revisions. But we're not cutting out a period. Like, everyone gets to still contribute and comment.
But we still can push it back is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Because I don't want it to be like, oh great, I'm reading something and it's like, I see that we're transforming our community in a TV system. So I want to push that back.
Sure. Now, Google Drive allows that level of wordsmithing.
No, I got it this one.
Right. So, and commenting, it allows everybody to participate in time. So it's a live thing happening. When it comes here to SEAC, if you look something, you look like that is generally wrong, there's some problem, definitely you can send it back.
Still have consensus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So can I ask you to say small things on that? What would be, I was looking at that the email that sent on reaching out number 3. And I looked at the subject title, and I'd ask if maybe we could get it in a particular way that is the title of the subject matter, because we do get quite a few emails. Is to just simply have in caps, need response by, and put a date. And so therefore, I know that one I got to respond to. These others are more informational. Because otherwise I look at it and go, the SEAC meeting is not until 2 weeks from now. I'll read that later when I prepare for the meeting. So that's why I was looking at it like, why didn't I respond to that? And I was just doing the quick triage on my email.
Okay.
The second is that is there a consideration of next time at our February meeting of having maybe just a real quick, even for those of us who really know it, is just to do a quick demonstration of how the Google Docs will work it, so that we all feel comfortable of how to use that process.
We'll add that for the action items.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful, and especially to help facilitate what you're talking about as quickly as the words that they offline if you will.
A little background, you mentioned when we started SEAC, we had those 4 groups, and then we mixed up the groups. The whole purpose of that is for you guys to get to know each other.
We know each other too well now.
So, that was the whole purpose of that exercise, mix people up and get to know each other, get to know our little nuances, and just break down some communication barriers. So I think that was
effective in that.
It was effective. So we're moving forward. We learned from that, and we learned a lot more things about our processes. So hopefully, if you can, let's give this a try for the next few briefing notes, and if it works, then we're going to get some stuff out of here a lot quicker. Because there's folks out there that want to see what we do, and you want to know what our results and how it's going to affect them and benefit them.
Is there the intention of taking some of the 2703 discussions that are already underway and rolling those into SEAC activities also?
Definitely. Okay. All right. So now I want to make sure, there's under strategy and actions. Obviously, it doesn't go into a lot of detail, especially when we go into goal number 2. Goal number 2 is to have 25% of the solar industry. We're talking everybody, HJs included, private and public sector, in California. So we're going statewide here. Adopt a briefing notes by July 1st and 50% by December 1st. That's a hefty goal, and there's a lot of work that's involved in that. A huge part of it is awareness. If we go around and say, how many in the state of California organizations, agencies we're using MailChimp. We've got subscribed to it, and we're going to develop newsletters, messaging to create that awareness.
Define adopt. Use the word adopt the briefing notes. What does adopt mean?
Adopt is not in the formal sense that a city council is going to adopt a briefing note or that some legal action. It's basically, hey, I'm going to be used.
I like it.
Yeah, it's used. They're
Useful to me.
Used. So we're going to, once we create that awareness and we start publishing the briefing notes, we'll do some surveys and see if the ones we have gotten out there and get feedback to the surveys and say, okay, we sent out, I don't know, an email, 9,000 different folks about the awareness and the briefing notes. Then we survey and we get back a percentage sample, and we say, hey, 3% of them have responded, yes, we are using this and find this beneficial. So that's the way we'll gauge this. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so those metrics would have like click to open numbers or metrics behind it.
Oh yeah. MailChimp allows us to do all kinds of metrics and measurements and we'll send that data.
Can I ask another terminology question?
Definitely.
How do people view the term briefing note? Just a question of whether we think of another term of, like maybe as an application practice or I don't know. I'm trying to think of something else, but
Like a guideline.
the briefing note makes me think, this is a legal document.
Okay.
And more, to me, it's more of a this is just a recommended practice.
The inspection committee, the LA Basin Inspection Committee, and the Ventura Inspection Committee were using the terminology bulletin program, the informational bulletin.
Or information bulletin. It's something that
Bulletin program.
briefing kind of, like I said, has a legal connotation to me. I'm now, we're missing your document, but I just wanted to add, because terminology helps if we're all understanding what terminology means.
If we're going to change the name of the group.
And that also people outside of us that pick this up will understand what we're doing.
And I think there's another meaning there, because once we do publish it and jurisdictions and other bodies actually accept those, we would like to see which one accept those briefing notes, whatever you want to call them. If you can share that information with us once you.
Oh, definitely. All the metrics we share with you, the data that we collect and share, so you can see one part of California versus others, versus AHJ versus manufacturers. So we'll be able to gauge that based on surveys.
So the metrics would actually show, okay, LA County is using all these, City of LA is using half of these, San Diego is using one of these.
We should be able to do that.
But I think we need to keep in mind, most of our briefing notes, or whatever John wants to call them, they give several recommendations. So it's not like you can look at it and say, oh, that means this jurisdiction is doing this. Usually what we put in those is, here's some good directions to go, some things to consider.
Yeah.
So when you adopt it, you're not really saying you're doing anything. You're just saying, yeah, I'll think about that. I agree with it. It's a good idea. Maybe I'll take one of those. Apply some of it. We usually give them several options. We don't say, only, for example, photographic inspections. That's what the briefing note says. None of my say that. That's an option to consider. So
it would be hard to, well, obviously it can be done where you measure that in each recommendation, but that's a lot of work.
I think again, as an installer, if I know that a certain jurisdiction or a certain city accepts the resolution, bulletin, whatever you want to call it overall, I can do the follow-up process. Like, so okay, can we do the the virtual inspection process? So I can do that follow-up, knowing that I have something to work with.
So we'll share that info with everybody.
Yeah. Well, just thought of it. I've seen the utilities. There's numerous utilities, 80 some like utilities on 12 Western states, and what they have is and they create similar kind of application notes. What they do is they have a list. You look down the list and go, PG&E accepts this one, that one, this other one, and they check that box. And then they might also indicate whether they partially adopt that one, versus that would address what Steve was talking about, or that they took it all in total. And so I think bring this up to your peers?
Not yet, no.
And I'm thinking during the time, you and I can talk with you about it because I've been already talking about last month. I think that this would be timely. It's San Diego in mid-March. I think that would be
that'll be great.
a good thing.
That'll be really good. Now, what's challenging about goal number 2 is resources. So we're looking at ways to augment our resources and also fund them. If that's not on there, it's obviously, something that's always in the back of our mind because all this takes time and takes effort.
Hector?
All us one person.
When you get the website up, maybe you can have a GoFundMe on there. Seriously. I mean, if you're interested in this group.
Thanks, sir. All right, so the last over, this is something that came up, I think, even before the formation of SEAC, and it was very specific to LA County. We're having some incredible challenges with some large-scale projects up in the Antelope Valley. Incredible challenges. And we have even heard because of those issues that some large projects are walking away from Los Angeles County. Hey, we're not doing this for you guys. Wow. And that's really bad because that hurts the economy, jobs, hurts industry. So the discussions with very different folks, hey, well, how about putting this, I'm going to call it a manual, I'm not sure what to call it yet, but it really walks a developer, contractor, installer through the LA County process, both planning process and development, entitlement, permitting, inspection, closing out the project. And so that's what this manual speaks about. And what I've heard still from the same folks is that this would be of value. So now we can create something specific for LA County, and which would be great for us, honestly, but can we create something that is a little more general that benefit other folks. So I'm putting this put this on here and really want your feedback. And it will take time, and it will take some resources because I see this as fairly comprehensive, and it's something that I don't think that we have the resources to do that now. So put an RFP out on the street, hire a consultant, the financial part, and we need folks around this table and others to contribute. Definitely we need to get that input. So I'm putting this on there, and to really think about it, I really want your feedback. If this is still something of value for, I'm going to call it, for Southern California or even a little bigger than that.
But it could be used anywhere, Victor. I mean, it doesn't have to be Southern California or any jurisdiction. Whoever wants to go onto a PV, they should know what are the challenges, from planning to the fire, to the public works, to utility. So we're trying to get that so anybody could use it in LA, San Diego, anywhere in the country.
I have found a few online, but the project, the planning, development side of those are actually just a few pages, and everything else deals with the financial and technical side. Huge, 90% is that perspective. So it's really geared to somebody from the utility side that wants to build a large-scale project.
I stumbled across one recently. Imperial County has an awesome plan.
Okay.
I don't know if any of you have seen it, but it is very, very, it's 77 pages long, and the comprehensive document tells you, here's all the things you need to know from state, county, and your local. I'll send you the website link for it. And then there's also that they have, it's buried on their website, and then the second is that it also tells you these are the things that need to know federally.
That's Imperial Valley?
Imperial County.
Okay,
we'll take a look at that. So if that's comprehensive, or
and they put a lot of work into it, you can tell from.
Excellent. All right, we'll take a look at that.
Hector, just a point of clarification. You're speaking of commercial and industrial, and then you just mentioned large scale or utility size projects. I mean, is that split, or is the focus to be more for the utility side or the C&I side?
It's not for the utility side. Okay.
There's a real need for that industrial scale solar project guidebook or whatever you call it. don't clean up our act, somebody's going to take that away from a local jurisdiction and give it all to the state.
Great, great. And I'm just saying, the plagiarism is always a good thing.
It sure is. So if anybody else is aware of something like this, please send me a link or where to get it. Go look at Imperial County. The ones I found were a little different. They're actually outside of the United States manuals. Okay. So those are, we don't have one to put together, 10, 12 goals. We want to keep them just very simple. If we really work hard at this, I think it's really achievable. And when we think about 25% of solar can start using our panels, if we really make people aware of SEAC and what's coming out of here, I think that can be achieved. So, move forward. And if it's done, any final comments, questions? Okay. Thanks, folks.
Are we talking about this yet, the utility issues?
We're on number 9. So I know number 9 may take a little bit of time, so you guys might want to get to lunch, and then we can talk about the number 3.
Yeah, we'll set up number 3
We'll
while
number 3,
everybody,
we
yeah.
break for lunch, and we'll jump on number 3, and then go into number 9. That work?
Oh, and then the photographer backstage is setting up for a group photo. So if you don't mind not spraying too much, just the members.
So this is for the website. We want people to know who you are. See your picture. We'll go from there. Okay. So should we go to the picture first, real quick?
Yeah, let me find out from Adam if he's set up.
That's why I wore a tie today.
That's why you look so 50.
One doesn't go blue.
I have a tie. I put my belt on my head. I like that.
Now, if you like, we can talk about yesterday's meeting on UL 2703. Want to do that real quick? Okay, good. So, a little background on that meeting. I'm going to put the county hat on. Okay, so the county perspective, we have been looking at UL 2703 and installation instructions for some time, and we have seen issues with installation instructions. So the county said, hey, why don't we put together this checklist of things we believe should be installation instructions. We looked at the standards that we developed and said, hey, look, we think this is what it means, and we took our staff at it and we came up with 15 items. So there was all kinds of reactions to that, obviously, and so we thought the best thing to do is to bring in the manufacturers together and let's sit down and talk about this and see and really open it up. This is our staff of trying to improve installation instructions, but now we're saying, why don't we step back and hear from the manufacturers who actually have to produce these instructions. So we brought a lot of people together yesterday, really great turnout, and the message really was, hey, we're open to hearing from you. We want your feedback. If there's things out here that really does not make sense, it's possible to implement, or just super costly, let's look at them and let's adjust them. At the end of the meeting, it was Don, where is it about? What are you doing? And,
Sure. About a month ago, well, it started almost a year ago, a number of manufacturers who meeting at trade shows and other things came to the realization that the racking and mounting segment of the industry tends to be treated like the redheaded stepchild, and there was a need to have a concerted voice of manufacturing present to code writing groups, AHJs, to express our requirements and try to provide some information about the challenges that face the racking manufacturer, especially with regard to some of the standards, some of the codes. So about a month ago, kind of came to fruition with 9 manufacturing companies meeting at the SEA headquarters, Solar Energy Industries Association headquarters in Washington. That meeting, we pretty much agreed that, yeah, we need need a committee, we need a concerted voice. So it isn't just one manufacturer saying, I don't like this, another manufacturer saying, well, I'll do this. It was consensus among the major equipment manufacturers. There was a discussion about whether we do this as an independent trade organization or as under the auspices of SEAC. For a number of reasons, we decided that it would be better to do it as part of SEAC. So we formed a committee which now has about 10 manufacturing companies on board, informally being called the Mounting System Manufacturers Committee under SEAC. And one of the things that we did, one of the first official things that we did, was to poll the members, and the Congress among the members, to discuss the 15 points on the memo and to provide Hector and Mustafa and David the manufacturers' response to those. And as it turns out, there were other areas where we were in solid agreement with LA County and their desires. There were several items where it is contentious, where we as manufacturers feel that the requirement is impractical or unnecessary, and we will be providing that information to the county. We just had a meeting on Tuesday, so I have not had a chance to put it in an email and get it out, but I will do that. Not this week, first thing next week. But you will also see a press release from SEAC announcing formation of this committee, allowing other manufacturers who are interested in mounting and racking manufacturers who are interested and willing to participate in work to join the committee. So we are very pleased to have the opportunity to speak with you all. It was a useful and productive meeting.
Good. Well, thank you. So originally we were going to go one by one as items yesterday, but then learning about what you guys informed, I was more productive to get one set of comments and then from the industry, and then we can react to those. And wherever if folks are not a member of the committee, we will of course accept your comments individually. That's not a problem. The intent here is not to create what an LA County required installation instruction. No, we don't. That would not be good for anybody. But hopefully something that works for everybody else. That other HJs can use to say this is okay. This works for us. When somebody submits a permit application, it goes through the inspection process. This is installation instructions, and this works for all of us. So we're eager to hear the responses and recommendations, and we'll hopefully get that soon and move forward. Stop. Anything you want to add, Charles?
Yeah, I will. So I greatly appreciate and have been involved in a lot of discussions about the burial in the last year. And there's also a current, already formed and has been functioning marking and manuals task group for EMO 27.3. So I know that group is also looking at taking those 15 items that are there and to do it because I think it seems like long term actually it would seem like it would be far better to have it that it's all that's needed is driven into standard, so that then there isn't a need for a secondary review by each jurisdiction to review the instructions. That is on the onus of whoever is certifying it, whether it be UL or ETL or TUD or CSA. And I've been talking a lot with the task. I'm on that task group. The task group chair, Dr. Clownshaw, I know is going to be putting together a task group meeting in February to go through what proposed changes to the standard. Now, albeit, the changes to the standard are not going to change immediately, but at least it would seem like wherever we're going, it would seem like it would behoove everyone for it to be in one form.
That was in fact one of the recommendations of the manufacturers committee. It does belong in the standards group, and was at the meeting. I too am on that marketing
really need to have that change voted on and accepted by the SEC. As long as the task group was in agreement, we would present that to LA County. We would have something that was the basis of we could start permitting LA County based on a consistent interpretation of 2703. And so I think that was one of the things that was very productive about the meeting yesterday. We are in fact doing exactly that.
Amen. And I did speak with Chris Flickinger, who runs the 2703 SGP after yesterday's meeting. He's in agreement with the logic that was just stated, and I'll be meeting again with him next week, and hopefully John can get Brad Schmidt, who's the chairperson of the 20.
I wouldn't say Chris runs the SGP.
Well, he's the principal engineer for it. Yeah.
Brad Schmidt is the chair of the Standard Technical Panel, and so overall, yeah, Brad is the one who's going to operate on that. And it certainly, and I was talking to Sonny about this before too. We'll certainly make sure that everybody is on the same. Just like what you're talking about is that the technical group doesn't leave anybody out. Everybody gets to talk. Everybody gets their say, and gets the root needs and make sure that nobody's left unheard.
So yeah, and I misspoke. Chris Flickinger is the principal engineer, and Ben, of all the individuals that I've worked with over the past several years on 2703, one of the most involved in the standard and language development and task group activity. So next week, yeah, it's a big part of what he's been doing. So next week, it's my intention to outline a timetable, at least for bonding and grounding, and the 1703, 2703 joint task group, where I feel many of the most challenging issues relate to 1703 and some significant work that has to start with that task group, which hasn't really started. So in addition to the 2703 work, there's an effort that needs to be made to reconstitute the 1703 Standard Technical Panel and get them up to speed on everything the 2703 group has been addressing. And hopefully we can reconstitute that Standard Technical Panel so they can start the work that is really necessary.
So, very little history of what's going on. I mean, for the past few years, we're looking for some kind of guidelines, some kind of installation instruction from all these racking companies that are putting the 2703 listing out there. And as an inspector and as a plan checker, we don't, to this day we don't have them, but if you have them, they're not complete. So the whole idea of putting the 2703 on the SEAC and addressing the SEAC was not to just talk about it, was actually have put some kind of recommendation out there for us as an inspector, for you as the manufacturers, and for the test labs to be able to all work together to understand what's going on. So pretty much as an inspector, we're looking for installation instruction. We want to be sure, that's what we've been saying all along. We want to be sure that when we get into the job site, we know how to inspect these racking systems. So we tackled this in a different way. I remember a couple of 2 months ago, I came to you guys and I said, LA County has put out a 22-item requirement between the test labs and the racking companies and us to go through it. And then the test lab took over, John was initiated, Sonny was on it, we came on it, and then we realized that's going to take a long time to go through. Technical asked me, anything that we can do right away? Is there anything that we can help because the companies do right away? Because we want you guys, we want the industry to install your product in our roofs. So we put that 15 item out there 2 weeks ago. The 15 items are only concerning to installation instructions. We don't want to see no more listing reports. We don't want to review anything that's out there. We just want to be sure that if the manufacturers could submit the installation instructions via the test lab to us and follow those 15 steps to meet the intent of the standard. At no time, LA County is trying to rewrite the standards or have their own standards. We just want to be sure that at this time we feel it's going to take time for this thing to go through the standard committee. There's a task group that I'm part of it. John was talking about it. That is part of the manual and installation instruction. That is taking a long time. There's a task group that Jim was just talking about regarding 2703 and 1703. That could take a long time. But meanwhile, the companies out there need to be able to install their product on our roof. And we felt that by us putting that 16 item out there, which which we're going to be discussing, which is not in concrete, which we're going to compromise, okay? And the biggest obstacle out there is for that labeling and marking. For those inspectors that are on the roof looking at them, that's one of them which we're going to compromise. We compromise with Iron Bridge. We compromise with the ZIP system for Solar City. So we are in talk with as Texas and Don both said, that we are to actually put, maybe that 15 become 10. But we don't want at no time, I want to be sure that at no time the LA County is trying to underline or undermine the standards that almost all of us are, so many of us in this room are part of it. And you're just trying to speed up the process a little bit because we want people to start being in the product every time. Thank you, Mustafa.
Let me just turn that around a little bit and say, okay, we've developed a standard for UL, UL 2703 has been developed. We've developed a product that follows that standard. So we would rather all the changes get driven through the standard. So if there's a change that has to happen, we'd rather see it get driven through the standard. I know that Duncan will be part of the manufacturers group and they'll look at it, but as a company that's basically followed the standard and come in with a product that meets the standard, to our understanding and our interpretation, it's a little bit frustrating to have a situation where you're saying we're trying to help you be able to install in LA County. Well, we already did that work.
But Jim, I don't want to get into technical part of that. As we speak, your product, or you're talking about ZIP Solar, doesn't meet the full extent of it. Doesn't meet the standard. Doesn't have a label. Doesn't have any marking on it. So what's the difference between yours and Iron Ridge? Or the same thing. We want the mounting systems and quick mounts to have the same opportunity.
Well, and I like the statement that was made before. My sense is that we can get coordination between this process and the task group work, and that's right now what I'm going to focus my energies on is that level of coordination. My hope is that whenever LA County adopts their requirements, that the task groups are in agreement with the logic of that, and that will be what eventually gets adopted into the standard as soon as we can get that to a vote. So I hope we can coordinate that work so that when the task group adopts it, there's not a fundamental difference between what LA County is looking for and what the task group feels is appropriate.
I think that the value here is there is definitely some great suggestions from the county to improve the instructions in the manuals, the manuals and marking. And I've studied those two sections of the standard, and they need a lot of work. I don't think there's any single person in this room that would argue with me about that is not the clearest. It's the first draft of, the first edition of the standard. Always the first edition of the standard will always have things that can be improved. I mean, that's why we do, and same with codes. That's why we have code development committees constantly and continue to take bites at the apple. So what I think is the best thing that I'm hearing, and I'm delighted to hear this. It sounds like everybody's agreeing that we need to work together. We need to work, but we also need to work quickly and efficiently. And that I think that part of the problem, I think that has been in this mix, frankly, has been there hasn't been an established timeline or urgency, if you will, for dealing with on the task group. And I think that and to also give more time for it. Because on those conference calls, frankly, for those of you who have not been on it, we've only had these 1 hour blips, and you just can't really. You've only just started talking on some of these complex issues. So, and I agree with Jim also. I agree that it's great if we could just drive it through real quick. The thing is, I'm hoping that what will happen, frankly, is that we go through the task group, and that then whatever the task group is taking, that the LA County certainly can use that as an interim, and then that will give the manufacturers a comfort level that, hey, if the task group is already going forward with this, then even though the standard will, when it gets to the standard technical panel, they're going to do the same thing that that Hector's wanting us to do and not wordsmith the heck out of something. And then second of all is that the manufacturers are going to have a comfort that they can make the changes and not have to make it yet again once the standard changes. that's the issue I understand from manufacturers. So it sounds like we're all finally talking the same language, which is great.
Good, very good. So, Jeff, getting back to you, yes, definitely, this all will roll into SEAC. There's issues 5.3. There are some initial issue statements. I believe those issue statements will need to be revised based on our discussions, but we'll deal with that down the line. Any other questions or comments about the time for now? There's a lot more to come, obviously, so stay tuned. Okay. So, lunch, food is where? Let's take lunch, huh? I don't know, did you make lunch? Paul, on food? I thought you made lunch. I did. Okay, Paul mentioned cafeteria's open, start going through lunch for everybody.
I think we do have enough if everybody just takes one.
Okay.
That's fine. John.
One sandwich.
Love you, John.
One bite. John did. Okay. The back, coffee, so everybody's welcome to that.
And how long are we breaking for?
Let's take 10 minutes to get our food, so it'll be enough for everybody, and then we can jump in and take a look. Want to do photo first?
They said enough, so they asked after lunch to take a photo.
Okay, well, should we do it before or after we have the stains on our
Yeah.
So let's grab the food, and then once everything's settled in eating, then we'll talk about the comment on issue 3.
Whatever you want. Something else is great.
All right, see you tomorrow morning, bright and early. What time you figure we'll be done with it? Just so you're aware, really quickly, I'll show you what I've done. I got your guidebook there, just saying it's developed by PR, showing the running chronology. The objectives of AB 2188, survey data, and so I rounded everything up and tried to make people 100 to the best of my ability. All right, and then so that's I'll email you the no worries. All right, I will see you on I'll reach out to you. You know, this regional thing I want to. No problem. Parking and rent. Okay. Thank you. So there's a quick photo outside. Recognize the quick photo. And then we write. Email in the back.
Yeah, before we get signed on our church.
So, we're talking about
trying to get three issues, the three really quick.
Oh, okay.
Oh, you sure you have enough?
Yes, I do. No, I do. I've counted. I've done a head count and I counted the
Oh, okay. I work there, I don't live there. Where do you live? Maybe now. Yeah. I grew up in Old Park.
Everybody out here, let's know how this works, and whoever wants to be in the group photo.
Get out there already?
Yeah, I don't know, it's true.
I think
Only shows the members only.
Oh, the members are all, all right, we're gonna figure out. But it's right, so. That's my assumption.
Yeah, Peter, I guess here.
You should, okay, I'll take that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I just really close.
I remember actually, you know, you're,
Oh, okay.
This is one fun about
Yeah.
group photo. All right, yeah. How are you doing? Good. Great. So, right now, the light shut down.
For e-delivery, right.
Okay, cool.
For residential, commercial.
Are you having? I'm just asking them. Really?
Yeah, right. Yeah, we're ready.
LA County?
LA County is a big county, so approval here is one hurdle. Yeah. But I would think it's an everywhere issue, I think. Most other areas care about it, but are less in the details, so like testing, whatever. LA County sort of wants to interpret it, see all the details.
Yeah.
I think the problem is the standards are good, but really, you know, so. Tough to sort of comply with everything.
Trust that's exactly how that is.
You know what? We can look at it for last 10 years. I'll take a picture of everyone, and I've never seen my wife started to get mad. I want to get you this card.
then if later in the day, that was very attractive. I think that when they changed 9 to 9,
Okay. Did everyone have their photos taken? Did all the members have their photos taken? Yes.
Well, you want to take the LinkedIn profile or you want to take some shots? Follow, go around the flag.
Yeah, and just keep on going. Don't worry about the board.
Okay, folks, let's go back over here. And we're going to look at issue number 3, extensions that. This was, I believe, the last meeting regarding establishing a balance in terms of installers and AMJ. This is a recommendation from SAPA. Just want to make sure that everybody's okay with the extension.
What was that? So what happens? I'm sorry, you promised.
This is actually a comment you made, Mustafa, that you want to balance in terms of this is what the background said as well as HJ. So you made a recommendation as to a sentence, and that is in red right there. I just want to make sure folks are okay with that.
At the risk of having Hector hit you because of a wordsmith question, would you be okay with it just simply being the word and after preparation before understanding just be the word or? Because it's not both have to happen. It may be because of one or the other. I'm okay with it anyway.
We should have just done it when John was out there talking.
No, that's good. So you're talking about.
I'm just simply saying, right, just take the and, you put it in the or, and just take the word and after that because there's going to be because of one or the other issue. Sometimes it may be both. You don't have to say and or, but I think if you could say it's one or the other.
So, I know not everybody's here, but the folks that are here.
We don't have any problem with it.
This looks good. This is not a huge deal. Okay.
I think it's a great suggestion.
Okay, so now, let me check with Craig real quick.
Who's asking for Craig's here?
This is a sentence that Mr. Mustafa to add to the background. That some permit applications require resubmission due to insufficient preparation or understanding of codes and standards. Fair enough. Sure. Okay. Excellent. Okay. So, and then there's one item here under recommendations. This is a comment that I made. Whoa. Just found it. Up a little bit. And this is a recommendation to development and use of a guideline for jurisdictions to clearly inform applicants of all the documentation required and the method of submission. And SEAC will be developing a guideline and aims to publish this details in summer. I made a comment because to me, it wasn't clear what the guideline is. I'm not sure what this is. If somebody can clarify what that is.
John, it was actually one of your suggestions. And it was
my suggestion to have a guideline created?
Yeah, it was, you elaborated on it in one of the emails and you said so that both parties know the expectations. It was to do with jurisdictions and having the requirements of AB 2188 on their website and perhaps have a guideline.
Oh, suggestions on how to accomplish that?
Yeah. some
I think that-
consistency.
So I was just thinking about this, also looking at some of the briefing notes or whatever it's called. But I'm wondering if we're better off in any of them to not say something about that we are, as a group, are going to do something in the future by a certain date. Okay? I mean, just because then we're kind of locked in.
Yeah.
And I think that it might be better for us to maybe have a list of follow-up action items that we could do for further improvement of the briefing note, and just leave it and just say this is what we recommend now. Because if you say somebody should do something in the future, or if you say we should be doing something in the future to provide a guideline.
So are you saying take it out for now?
I'm saying just take out the from SEAC to the date, because I think that it's a very vital point to say the development use of a guideline can clearly do that is a good thing.
Okay. Can you kind of so the guidelines will provide information to somebody as to what are the minimum requirements?
Yeah.
For permits.
But AB 2188 already requires that.
Yeah.
We already have to do that, and it's defined within that.
So from that, what you can say is that at the risk of words is say jurisdictions should have a guideline to jurisdictions should clearly inform applicants of the documentation required and the method of submission. Period. You don't need to say the development use of a guideline, or you don't have to say. So all you're saying is jurisdictions should provide. Jurisdictions should clearly inform applicants of the documentation required and the method of submission. Period. That's what
You could, or you could say must in accordance with AB 2188.
Maybe 188 says.
Well, I know, but it's. Or if you want to say end it with in accordance with AB 2188, that's fine.
But then it wouldn't be a should, it'd be a must. But yeah, I don't care either way. No wordsmithing here.
Thank you. So,
You understand what I'm
want to just put it up there real quick, and then we can just.
Of course, your eyesight better than mine.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
I'm
if you
going
make that bigger would help.
Okay, so I'm going to
I hate to
remove.
admit that before I have my physical.
So, jurisdiction. Should.
And I'm fine with Pete's must
Shall.
or shall or must.
I just put it shall or shall.
Shall.
Jurisdiction shall.
Yeah.
It's very tough to try.
Jurisdiction shall clearly inform applicants of all the documentation required in the method of submission. Are you okay with that?
Can you read it?
Jurisdictions shall clearly inform applicants of all the documentation required and the method of submission.
I've got to add just one thing, and I experience this with a lot of building officials when we're trying to get them to support a document. If we're going to have the word shall in there, I think Pete's idea of at least including the term about AB 2188
in accordance with.
Otherwise, they're going to read that and go, who are you to tell me what I have to do? Even though they have to.
Yes.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Otherwise, they don't like being told what to do.
Yeah. It's not us telling them what to do.
Right. That way
We're just alerting
blame it on AB 2188.
Okay, excellent. So, comma.
It's all what the comment brought up.
Okay, so how does this look? We're okay with this?
In accordance with.
We're good?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Okay, excellent, good.
And that was it. That's it done.
Okay, so we're going to go into item 9, discuss and agree on draft final briefing note, issue number 4. So this is going to get interesting because the recommendations, well, we'll go to that in a second.
Hey, the future on the do not do word specific. That didn't apply to this.
We're still bringing these up to speed. Because those are predicated on the product coming out cleaner from you.
Okay, so did everybody get a chance to go to this with me? Tomorrow, I haven't asked, but does anybody online have any comments or questions? Just want to be sure that's being monitored.
Yeah, they've been receiving questions. Mostly it's just been any issues on there for audio, but nothing, there hasn't been any meaningful questions for the conversation as of yet.
Okay, good. Okay, so let's go into, this is the report briefing note regarding AB 2188. I just want to be sure, did everybody get a chance to review this? And up to, if everybody's okay with the briefing note, I do want to talk about the recommendations a little bit.
Well, number 4, if you can scroll down, we've got up to, we are highlighted in red. Yeah, that's where we ended our last meeting.
Okay, so, this is where it gets interesting based on the comments on the previous briefing note, because it talks about products to be produced by certain states, like SEAC. So I just want to be sure we're going to be consistent that we then take states out of here. And also, again, this goes back to resources that we put dates on here, and we may not be able to hit those dates just because the amount of resources we have right now.
And so just a quick thought is that I would just drop on these. I would just simply drop the and aims to publish. We aim to conclude our research and aims to publish and aims to publish on all those. Because otherwise that does lock you in, and you don't need it. That should be locked into your work schedule of items.
Yeah.
The second thing that I would also suggest too, if I may, on all 4, I would drop the in consultation with its members because to say that the committee consults with itself is kind of a weird phrase.
Okay.
I mean, you just simply as SEAC will be doing it.
Do we even need that?
Well,
I'm fine with SEAC doing it.
just to interrupt, I only put that in red because we had to ask for clarification on how it was going to be done.
Well, I'm not saying it shouldn't be done. I'm just saying do we need to say SEAC's going to do it, or should we just do it?
Yeah, we just do it.
It was only really to explain how it was going to be done to Hector. That's not how it's going to be published.
The red isn't to be published.
I got it.
Okay.
Well, the only reason why I suggested, let's take the 4th one, for example. SEAC will be creating a work group to develop this online interactive resource. It's kind of giving notice to people that, that there is going to be something in the future. And if they hit that, they go, because if they read it, they say, see the recommendation is, gee, this should be developed, then they're going to go, gee, this should develop that. And we're just simply saying, we're willing to step forward on it. We're just not telling you when.
Suggestion and the yellow is for future assistant SEAC will be developing the following.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
Do it that way.
That's perfect.
Okay.
Okay. Excellent.
And then take it all red.
And then you can drop all the stuff that's in red.
Yeah.
And those are.
Yeah, the red was never to be published, only because Hector asked me, how is this going to be done? So it was kind of an explanation.
Just clarification.
I throw under the bus too.
Thank you.
I love it.
Jim?
It was just for clarification, the red?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
all
Okay.
clarification. So all the red will be taken out,
Yes.
and then the for future assistant SEAC will develop the following. That's good.
SEAC plans to develop the following.
SEAC plans to develop the following.
Yeah, because at the last minute, you and the staff had, at the last meeting, you and the staff had to be ready.
Yeah, no problem.
So that was just my explanations and input.
You're far better off saying you plan to do it rather than you will do it, but then you're stuck.
Yeah.
Okay, so those 4 through 7 was written in black. Sort of fantastic ideas, and we'll put those part of the work, and so we can how they can be fit in. And I'm real okay with what it says on there. It looks good.
So you say for future systems, the following should be developed by SEAC.
For future assistance, SEAC plans to develop the following.
Yeah. There you go. Perfect.
And then we just clean up the language of the black portion. So
Yeah.
instead it should be just a research group.
So
You don't have to, I agree with you.
So the report is an online interactive resource that provides consistent information, trending in the solicit, is this available, solar, blah, blah, blah. So the only thing is going to be 4 through 7, it's just the black. Everything else will be taken out, all the red.
But Craig brings up a good point. If you're saying for future assistance, SEAC plans to develop the following, just drop the words should be developed.
Right.
You don't do that.
Oh, okay.
Because you're just saying these are the things
After link, it gets the period.
to develop the following.
Okay.
1, this interactive. 2, a research group to identify
Yeah, right there. That's
the
perfect.
information. So all the should be developed needs to go away.
Good. Good talk. Thank you. I didn't catch that. So besides that, anything else? Anything else in a briefing note that for the previous meeting?
Afterwards, we were done.
I know. You guys are doing awesome. I mean, that's really good. Congratulations, folks. That's
Okay,
really good.
and then benefits.
Wait, I mean, you still have should be developed.
Yeah,
number
same thing
7,
5.
you have it in number 6. Those
So,
can go away.
5 should just say research group.
Do you want to work this out now?
Yes. Yes.
A research group formed to identify information and training gaps in industry. Period.
Well, you
Or
can flip it around and say form a research group to identify.
Okay. Good. Former research group. Number 4. Number 5. Former research group.
I don't even think you need that because you say develop the following. A
Yeah,
research
because
group
you have to
to
tie it back to that development.
Oh, yeah.
So just say a research group.
To identify
to-
information and training gaps.
Yeah, just get rid of that F. Right.
And should be.
Yep, I got it.
Yeah.
Good.
There you go.
Okay.
Develop the following.
Minimum criteria guideline for all available training programs.
Right.
Period. Right. Exactly.
We're going to put the word report back. We're going to tell
An online forum.
ETA,
Right, the guideline and all, should be the guideline and all, for all.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Excellent.
Now, I have a question. So we say these are the future things we got to do. Do we have a parking lot, so to speak, of a working list that we have to go back to say, or have we come back?
We have.
Or is it going to be buried inside a briefing note?
No. Part of the action items, they're meeting summaries. The action items, it grows. So we'll keep up as far as
So that will be the action item list.
Yeah. Thank you. You guys got that?
I didn't quite catch.
What? So these products that need to be developed will need to be added to our action item list.
Yes, I wrote that down.
Okay, but to develop, they can stay in this briefing note, but they're just be reworded.
Right. Very good.
just a comment, not advocating a change, but based on the presentation I gave, based on NABCEP, existing programs that are out there, number 6, we're going to start telling them what they need to have in their training programs. Keep in mind, NABCEP, the training that I presented today for qualified workforce, these are existing and been worked out by groups that have been, putting more time in it than we do and are able to. So I'm just curious that it looks like we're going to start going and telling them what they should be training on, and if this stuff already exists, we got to be careful.
So what I view this as is that I view this as just what it says a minimum criteria guideline for available training, for all available training programs. I see it as saying, okay, in your training program, it needs to include conversation about that.
I know.
Those kind of things. I'm not thinking that I'm thinking about a 20,000-foot level. Here's a couple of key attributes.
Yes, as long as we keep the humility, on our part.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, exactly. This is I'm not sure what training to take because there's all this stuff all over the place, and this will give you some direction.
Make sure it covers this and covers that, yeah.
Not to recreate something until somebody else, do.
One thing that I would like,
Big organizations can do this for many years, tell them what to do.
Right.
Could we just simply drop down the word criteria, just a minimum guideline?
Go back up, number 5, I believe.
Just a minimum guideline for the available training programs.
one thing I would like to see, and I don't know if it falls into this category, or maybe another briefing note, and that would be interpretations of gray areas in the code that each jurisdiction interprets differently and enforces it.
That's definitely, I think, was one of the top 60 big issues that eventually we should identify what are those parts of the code that get misinterpreted the most and kind of prioritize those, or differences of opinions.
So another briefing note, possibly.
Oh, definitely, yes. That's definitely.
Sorry, we're just watching the clock, so if we could wrap this up at about 1 and then head on to the utility issue.
Yes, definitely. So, benefits.
The above recommendations will aid in promoting consistent information, education and training on AB 2188 statewide standards, as well as other valuable SEAC training programs. This will result in creating a skilled and knowledgeable workforce. Studies showing improvement in productivity and the quality of work following training, thus resulting in a more efficient and effective workforce. Training is also one way of ensuring employees feel valued, increases staff loyalty, and decreases staff turnover.
It also helps in ensuring code compliance, installation. We talk all about the people in place, that we also have a safe and code compliant installation. I think that's just valuable.
Does that capture into that? In addition to skills and strong workforce that will achieve safe and compliant installation?
Oh,
that work for you?
that's on the next page. I'm thinking, because I'm not trying to read that well. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. Anybody else? Any deal killer here, or we're good? Okay. Talk to applicable to whom and ASJs, designers, installers. Why are designers and installers capitalized?
They're important. We didn't want to leave them out.
More than the ASJ.
Yeah, but they only got one letter. We got all 3.
Okay.
I don't know why we want to say the recommendation would apply to these 3 people, and then, oh, by the way, I guess that Amazon, it's also these other people.
It's always everybody.
It's everybody. I would just simply say the recommendations would apply to AHJs, designers and installers, fire departments, and just drop that in from the
Yeah.
It's everybody.
Excellent.
In fact, I would even start off with saying the recommendations would apply to everybody, and then you can enumerate everybody.
Yeah, because they're only recommendations.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly. I wouldn't say that about all of them.
Yeah, so maybe that laundry list, so it's the AHJ, PV system designers, installers, fire departments, manufacturers, blah, blah, blah.
All stakeholders.
What we just say apply to all in the solar energy industry.
Everyone impacted by solar.
Well, we could, I know in the previous briefing notes, we have detailed which job functions were most relevant there. I'm not sure if we retain that consistency, but we've done that previously.
Yeah, we did say you would mostly affect,
Yep.
and then under
Right.
the was.
But I like that idea of saying that the recommendation would apply to everybody, and then
Including?
and then you say, and then you dot, and then you name all these people.
Yeah, maybe if you say it applies to all solar stakeholders, including.
All solar stakeholders, including, apply to all solar stakeholders, including. Okay.
Why not all solar stakeholders? Here you go.
Yeah.
Less is more.
Yeah, because stakeholders, when else you have a laundry list, you leave somebody else.
And you might want to check the capitalization for what it's worth.
So the suggestion is after suggestion after stakeholders, put a period, and that's it.
That's exactly.
Take everything else out. Okay, good.
Okay.
So.
And then I'm going to apply that to the previous one so that it's consistent.
Yeah, I was going to say all of ours could say that.
And for what it's worth, it might be beneficial because I feel there is clarity when you define who you consider to be stakeholders. So I'm supportive of this language throughout all of the briefing notes. If we could define somewhere who we consider to be stakeholders.
Right. Yep.
How about to everyone involved in that have a stake in design and installation?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I'm just saying that it would be beneficial, again, for anybody who's reading these briefing notes to understand who we as a group perceive to be stakeholders when we're referring to these items.
And there does make a difference, because you may have somebody that's just a permit runner, and yeah, they're a stakeholder, but
We probably already have that in introductory to who we are.
We very well may, and
Yeah,
so
I
if
think
we can
do.
address it there, that's probably the appropriate.
That's where it should be, I think.
where?
In the introduction.
Yeah.
That's just,
But to who the group is as a whole, not even in the briefing.
somewhere,
You go to the
website or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that.
Yeah, so SEAC, serves a broad range of industry stakeholders, including, and then the laundry list of who we feel are the relevant stakeholders.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, then, you know, if you're a lawyer, you have to say including, but not limited to. So, I mean, to cover yourself that way, if you just write stakeholder period, and you have a definition in another part of it, then you cover.
Oh, in the operating guidelines,
Mm-hmm.
we should put define what stakeholder is.
Yeah, who's going to look in the office?
Well,
We could have it there.
A lawyer, that's who.
I forgot what page it's called. I even have it hanging on my wall. It's beautiful. It just describes who SEAC is. And
Is it the flyer or?
it's
Well,
First
we not
flyer
on the
you did.
website, we're going to list these briefing notes. My assumption is there would be some place there where we could state who the stakeholders would be that would be seen by
We'll
everybody.
come up with something to show you guys.
That's how most people are going to get these.
Instead of saying the same people over and over and over again.
Yeah, I
We'll show you guys next time where that is, the website or some of the documents. All right, so briefing number 4.
Do you want to put solar PV stakeholders?
Yeah, it should
Solar
say
thermal as well, and
Exactly.
I guess we probably should just put solar stakeholders and leave it at that.
Solar, because
Well.
it could be thermal.
Don't list PV. Let's just do
Where's
solar.
Solar Energy Action Committee? Why isn't that? Maybe you could, if you like, say Solar Energy Stakeholders.
That's like, you know,
But not limited.
Where's Solar Energy Action Committee, Solar Energy?
We're changing our name.
All right,
But we
That's a
know Solar
lawyer
Energy.
trick if they ever was.
We're time's up for,
You guys like the words, man.
we gotta wrap it up.
Well, when you write standards, words are important.
Yeah.
Extremely important. Wait till you get to court.
Oh, yeah, I've been there.
Hey,
I've been
what
there.
kind of work with your mission statement?
I know.
Well, anybody that knows the code knows that you have to.
We're flying under the sector. What are you talking
That's
about?
why we have so many different interpretations on code.
We're trying to keep you out of court.
It's enough.
Okay. All right, okay, excellent. How are we doing?
yeah, the disclaimer is the same as was in all the previous ones, so we should be good on that, right?
Okay.
Good.
Yep. And it's a reference to the guidebook?
Yes.
Good.
Motion to approve?
A second?
Second.
Discussions, comments? Anybody online? We're good? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none? Good job.
Can we go back and?
Is there anybody on?
We're ranking, so we're on item 11, Paula.
Yes, so proposed utility issues.
all about.
Just like, before we move on, just want to make sure Mustafa has an idea, maybe we can call it, something different, he'll share it. That's all. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't want to get to, everybody, you can share with Paul and then we'll send it out. And if anybody else has any ideas, want to call this briefing notes, we just share with Paula and. Okay, sure.
So I like to be called these PV recommended practices rather than briefing notes. So anybody wants to Google or anybody wants to looking Googling or looking at PV, these are the recommended practices that can be that you can install.
Do we want to say PV? Do we want to say PV? Because we're going to apply to solar
I just
PV.
want to hear what it was. We're gonna have a
We
chance
could call it
to.
solar, we could call it, what I'm saying is, it should be recommended practice rather than briefing. Briefing notes to the government department or to anybody out there has no meaning. It has a meaning for us because we define it.
I agree.
May I ask, Hector, please, could we have sent to us both some proposed recommendations to vote on the name of this group and then also about the brief. Just include the same thing. You say, for changing the terminologies, are you guys okay with these changes, or do you have any other suggestions? If there's no other suggestions, and if we just say, oh, I'm good with any of those, or with just this one, or whatever, we can just vote on it and then look at it and maybe call it up.
Good. And comment also, must have tax shows me is that if we don't have to change the name, if this is, even though there's some conflict of other names and some arm twisting to change our name, if the city's fine, you know, we just leave it. But I want to put that out there. So write your feedback back to Paula. If you have thumbs up, thumbs down, change the name. If there is changes you do believe that if you really feel very strong about keeping the name, let us know. And if not, then give us a suggestion. Okay? So get that back to Paula and we'll go from there.
Where did the request come from, Hector?
I'm getting pushed by the bosses here.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, no, it's important to know that.
But it's not like my arm's getting broken or anything. It's also based on CEAC.
Yeah, SEAC is SEAOC, and then SEAC.
I would suggest that we seriously consider a name change that does eliminate this confusion, because the SEAC one is one that really causes a lot of difficulties in conversations I've been having recently.
For example, in March, there's a CEAC/League of Cities Conference in Sacramento, which Mustafa and I are speaking, and it's a CEAC. They're going to say CEAC, and they're going to say SEAC, and they're going to say SEAC at the same time.
Just as long as we don't go with what there was an organization a long time ago, Western Electrical Service Utility Committee. We suck.
That would be good.
So just think about what the acronym will sound like.
Well, the other thing is when you think about changes is after we're already changed and we get going, then we're going to develop, somebody else is going to step forward and say, hey, that's real similar to ours, you know.
Like the SEC one?
Yeah, and the point is with the SEAC that we already have, we've already established, we're already getting a little bit of a backing, and to change it at this stage, we're going to get people to say, what's this, another committee? Something.
It's a valid point, and
it's already known.
well, I guess this other group you referenced fortunately has nothing to do with solar whatsoever.
No, it's cities, counties,
But SEAC does.
you're right.
That's where we get into trouble. So in my opinion, I'm willing to live with the problem with this SB, whatever it is. I'm uncomfortable with the confusion between SEAC and SEAC. I'm okay leaving it as is, even despite that discomfort, because realistically, I'm hearing a lot more talk about SEAC. Of course, I'm involved with it, but even then, I hear talk from other people more about SEAC than SEAC. So we should make them change their name.
I don't either.
The industry is getting used to the name SEAC, and if somehow we change it, we're going to be confusing the industry too. So I know our management are.
Let me ask you guys a question. The term committee, are we okay with that?
Committee?
Just want to be clear.
No, I like that.
We're okay. We're okay.
Yeah, I like that.
Everybody seems to be okay with that. Yeah. All right.
Committee who?
Well,
SEAC.
I don't know.
Hector, I found the document I was talking about. It's the one, streamlining solar energy through communication, invoking community unity.
That's the flyer.
Flyer.
It's a flyer, right? That could be right on the home page.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's going to explain who all the stakeholders are.
Perfect.
It already does it, really.
Yeah, I already have SEAC already on my folders, all that. And, so it's not.
It's on my trophy I got too. Structural Engineers Association should be up there. I'll bring it back.
Let's go on to the next item, Paula, utilities. We have somebody here. Yeah, it's very interested.
Sorry, because somebody online, Tom Young, who says he's been asking, is there no discussion on UL 2703, and I thought that we discussed it.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, we did.
We had what, a half-hour conversation, maybe longer.
I think the problem was, Hector initially announced lunch, and then we went on tangent about UL 2703, and I think maybe some online attendants just heard lunch and then bolted, and then we ended up talking for another 30 minutes before we broke for lunch. So
Let that be a lesson to all of you online.
Yeah, for those of us who just called it, we know how to
Just tell them how much we decided on the name.
You know Well, I think the substantive decision was that there are a couple things, that this will be addressed in future SEAC meetings as part of the SEAC process, and the other most substantive, that there is a desire to coordinate the activity of this 2703 discussion within LA County and SEAC with the task group activities, and that coordination extends to UL and many of the task group leaders.
And
Yeah.
That covers it pretty well? Okay. Good. Okay, excellent. Okay, Paul?
Yes, it's fine. All right, so shall we get into it?
Yes.
All right, so we've written it up, and what the feedback that I got from was mostly the installer representatives. I didn't get much from the utility side, so if we could really get their feedback, that would be great. And I know the last 2 weeks trying to coordinate the technical group call is a little bit challenging. So Alan Fields and myself, we chatted about these, the objective and the issue statement, and so that we were the only 2 that were able to discuss it. And we wanted to make sure that it encompasses both sides of the table and not, just one. So what we came up with is objective to facilitate streamlined interconnection practices and processes for small residential rooftop solar energy systems up to 10 kW in a timely and cost-effective manner while ensuring the safety and reliability of the electric grid.
Okay.
Yeah, and the objective is good. I don't have a problem with that, but I am going to jump ahead in the interest of time to the issue statement and the background. And I realize you guys were just trying to get something out for us all to discuss. But the issue statement says that there's considerable interconnection timeline delays. And the first sentence of number 2, background, says the average total number of days for utility interconnection in the state of California is 50 days from the date of application to the date of PTO, and then references this report. I have the report, and we're making the utilities look worse than what the report indicates. It is true from the date of application, according to this report, to PTO, it's over 50 days. However, that includes the time for permit processing, also includes the time delay. In other words, if the contractor needs 2 to 4 weeks for his crews to get on site to actually start the installation, that's all included in that 50 days. This same report that you cite has a metric for the average time in California for the utility connection to take place after they've received all their necessary paperwork. The job's done, they get notification the project's been completed. It's 10 days.
Okay.
And that's the average. In my area, Pacific Gas and Electric, if you use the online portal, it's 3 days. So I wouldn't be comfortable with it's almost like we're trying to make them look worse than they are so that we can recommend some solutions.
In the San Diego area, and I think everyone would deny this, it's fairly lengthy. But by the same token, the wordage, I think, should allow us to give them the benefit of the doubt that things will change. So we don't want to word them and box them in things that are presently the case, but later on, a few years from now, might be different.
So that's exactly the feedback that we want. Because, Paul was trying to get the feedback from the utilities as to what time's there.
Yeah.
So, this is not finished, obviously not finished still. So, take a look at this and provide us feedback. Glad you had the report.
Yeah. Everyone get the report and look at it, because it'll tell you 10 days. You cite the PTO metric. That's 10 days in here.
Okay. So that can be stricken out, but we want to be able to capture the issue in the background accurately from a whole perspective. So,
What's happening in San Diego is that we're getting, if it's panel upgrade is required as part of the PV installation, the delay is coming in the panel upgrade because we've got to get a planner out there, we've got to get them to write up what we call a service order. And that process right now, because we're short staffed, it can be lengthy, up to 6 to 8 weeks sometimes to get the planner to show up to actually generate the paperwork. Again, this is only for panel upgrades when they're doing that as part of the PV installation.
The panel will show up and there's going to be a meter spotter coming after? Or
No, the planner does that. That is not the meter, right?
Just a couple other thoughts too. Looking at I think that the issue statement may be a little bit. Just saying, hey, they are beset with considerable interconnection timelines. Like that makes it sound like every single
Yeah.
assignment is that way.
And it should be a word may and
I think that it really is that there is a need for, and probably part of that maybe is there needs to be clarity as to what the interconnection process is. Maybe it's that, you know, and just like we did with all the other ones previously, we kind of made it that it's everybody's problem, not just let's pick on one person.
Let's encourage things to happen quicker. Let's not say it's bad and they're terrible. Let's what can we do to make it better?
Yeah.
Peter Liang here from LADWP. Oh, hi Peter.
You should be over here.
Oh, and you should be fighting for making sure it's clear for what this is about.
Well, I think adding the word may is a reasonable approach to resolving the issue immediately.
Yeah.
And maybe we can wordsmith more after today's meeting.
But to Pete's point, like Mike and I have a report here that's from just state of California for Solar City. It's a year long. It's 50,000 jobs, and basically that time, which we consider that time to be not from before we consider it to be from the time the inspection passes to the time that it's actually able to be turned on or given permission to operate. And that time has varied almost consistently between 40 and 50 days.
That's when you've actually sent the document to them. Just because we sign it off doesn't mean the utility knows about it. You're responsible to give them that information. So we just have to make sure
It probably varies a little bit, Pete, between utilities. You know, because we had a situation with DWP, for instance, where, you know, we were running projects all the way through to inspection, and then we were using the application process before you guys changed your process to actually control the PTO. So that's not fair to them, right? Because that number's in there.
Right.
I would say those numbers are more consistent with what I've encountered.
But this includes I don't know how. I mean, it includes every utility we do business with in California.
So it doesn't vary that much throughout the city.
I mean, this is the average. It varies a lot. It varies a lot.
So I know we get calls from the customers.
Who's at the top of? Who's at the top of it?
I'd encourage everyone, if you can use a standard, you can use Solar Cities, or use this report that you cite, but just make sure you're reading it and citing the right numbers.
But I agree, the language, though, shouldn't reflect what the current situation is.
And again, may addresses that. If you say, the deployment utilization of small rooftop solar systems are often to be set with considerable, you could say it that way. There's just some qualifiers that will not,
can be.
Yeah, can be, and that I think addresses the concern.
Yeah, I know it's interesting, but I was just thinking it's the overall timeline for the deployment and utilization of these systems that can be impacted by interconnection.
Yeah.
That's really what it is.
Yeah.
I want to give you some background. This is your first time here, right? Yeah. Okay, you probably have no clue.
You're just being thrown into the shark tank.
No, I know for LADWP we did have, and we probably still have a lot of issues with interconnection. As Jim mentioned, we did change our process to separate the interconnection process from our application process, which we used to trigger a net meter installation. So for in LADWP's case, we do our interconnection process a lot differently from SoCalidus and TGN, which already has that meter readily available. LADWP has to actually go in and put in that net meter.
I want to back up a little bit. Way back, we identified a whole bunch of different issues that are potential roadblocks to getting PV installed. Many of them. And one of them was interconnection issues. So we're now at the point that we want to clearly define what the problem is, and then hear from every all different perspectives. How do we solve that? You know, we want to hear from you guys, from you. Hey, what's the best practices? How do we solve those? And by sitting around the table, we're going to hear different perspectives. So hopefully, we'll be able to put something on paper and say, hey, we talked to everybody, and this is the problem, and here's some recommendations. And these are not like, these are fill out, but helps everybody else out here. So your input is very valuable, especially there's a lot of interest in the Department of Water and Power up here. So, we welcome you to the table.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, sir. So just one clarification. So we're calling this series the Utility and Interconnection Standard Process Requirements. Issue number 1 is the method to streamline expedite interconnection practices. We're just talking about from the moment we install to the moment we get to PTO, or from like across the process, like we talk about panel upgrades, meter spots. So there are various issues that we can talk about that are throughout the process. So that we, as an installer, we would like to.
Good. If you go back to, I don't remember which meeting it was, but the issue of meter spots came up, panel upgrades came up, all those things have come up. So what we're doing here is we're putting, this is a straw man, we can break this down into other little bits and pieces and deal with those. We can do that. This is not, this is just, hey, let's put something on the table.
Yeah, this is a proposed.
Right.
If this is, we don't say that this is still looking at AB 2188 under that umbrella.
No.
But that would change. But we mentioned the 10kW.
So okay.
So are we not? Because if it was AB 2188, panel changeouts would be not part of it.
Wait, good point. So it's really, remember, this is really up to you. What do you want to tackle now?
Yeah.
Okay? And how specific you want to get into that? The meter spots, panel upgrades, other items. And we want to be sure that we capture, is it just one statement, or if we have one briefing note, or we have several that tackle each one of those? Or is it maybe 120, maybe 2188, or broader? So we have all that.
Makes a difference.
Yeah, well, it does make a difference, but one thing is the way some of the jurisdictions require a panel upgrade does fall under 2188, I believe, because there's a lot of jurisdictions that are throwing these things at the installer saying, no, you need to do a panel upgrade. And that same installation in another jurisdiction, they're not.
Right.
So let's take LA County, we are law on maybe 2188 for meter upgrade or panel upgrade, as well as reducing the main. So that's definitely the case for us in the county, in the county.
So, okay, so how are we going to tackle this? I heard,
Can we agree, can we propose some methods of splitting this topic out?
Definitely.
Because it is too much.
Yeah.
It is too much.
Yeah.
But it's a super critical topic, and I think we need not only these two guys sitting at the table, but SEE and SEE really has. Do we have a contact at SEE?
Yeah. Probably you got Gilbert.
Yeah, and he's unfortunately not been able to participate.
Because of his stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's another contact. We put a slide on my notes.
Okay.
We did try and contact. Do you have other contacts that
We've been doing a quarterly meeting with Eileen Lagbo and some others at SEE.
Right, because the person I reached out to was Tom Walker, and I'm getting feedback.
I know the guy in charge of government relations.
Oh yeah.
But I think we want to go. We want to go to somebody like maybe. Well, he's rebates though. Gary Bartley or.
Can I mention him? I don't know. Carolyn Joy. That's a ring if anybody's at SE. I was told that's the person to go to, but that doesn't sound familiar. No? Okay.
Of course, David Ford used to be our contact. But
Yes.
I see no longer.
Right.
We'll forward you our contacts,
All right.
and if you want us to make introductions and see if
Yeah.
they're not the right people, maybe they know the right person.
Yeah. Also, what I'll do is I'll phone Gilbert and I'll just ask him who can replace him.
Sure.
At this stage. It's really critical.
Sure.
They put a recommendation on the table. Can we get, if you guys can be part of a small group initially, if possible, and any one of you just to kind of break this down into maybe it's not just one issue, but maybe 4 or 5.
Right.
Get a few of you to kind of break it down and be specific, and do that fairly quickly, and then we can get those back out to the whole group and say, hey, this sounds good. And we don't have to get into the whole background and everything else, but just enough, hey, let's describe the issue really well, and so we capture everybody's perspective.
Yeah, let's get Shy and us and these guys and whoever from SEE. Let's do a conference call or something.
Excellent. Okay, we'll do that. You guys okay?
Yeah. Take on that one because, I think one of them will boil down to is what warrants it, say, an upgrade. And some consistency on how we're following.
Sure. Absolutely. Okay, excellent. Okay, so we've got a small amount of group. It's going to take us apart. We're very specific with the issue statement. It will be multiple issue statement, and then we'll come back. We'll email those out, be sure everybody's okay, and then we'll start. We'll get a technical group together to start
kicking them off.
Yeah.
Victor, what about asking the installers? What about the small utilities? What about Fairbanks? What about Glendale? What about Anaheim? What about Pasadena? Are you guys having problems with them as well, or no? You're only
across the board. Across the board. Smaller is harder.
So do we want to reach out to them? I mean,
we can do that. Getting people. I'm just saying.
Well, at the very minimum, obviously, having representation from Southern California, San Diego Gas and Electric, and DWP are that probably covers 90+% of the population.
Well, what's the group? The largest utility. What about yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, but not here. There's Southern California. And that includes PWP, Burbank, Glendale.
Hector, can I back up on you for 1 second?
Do you have anybody that would be there hold up at PG&E as well?
Yeah, I do. I can't guarantee they would commit, but I can try.
Hey, Jim, when you send Paula an email, will you copy me on that?
Sure.
Glenn Becerra is in charge of the whole umbrella for government relations.
Okay.
He's probably going to assign Rudy Gonzalez, but if there's a Danny too, I don't know. Just copy me on that. I'll make sure Glenn gets it.
And for the sake of discussion, it might not be a terrible idea for us to consider the possibility of starting to engage building officials in Northern California, because I think what we've started here has gotten to that point where I feel we can talk to those folks and say, this is what we've done, this is what we've accomplished. If we do engage PG&E, trying to get a few key representatives from Northern California to engage in this process would be highly desirable.
If you're going to go down that path, then you ought to be thinking about SMUD and Palo Alto. There's more.
Don't they have a representative group for all these?
Yes, they do. That's what I was going to suggest. As I said before, USERT, which originally thought of it 30 some odd years ago, that was the organization I mentioned earlier today. They realized they had to change that. So USERT actually has important things here. What they do is that they also have a photovoltaic tax credit. So once again, you may not want to read it and just simply go to them and say, what are you doing? And here's some recommendations. How you're not doing. So I know who those characters are. I'll provide that to you, or Paula, or
And maybe come intersolar time, which is a few months off yet, maybe we could at least facilitate a discussion there at the event with some of these key folks. Several.
She means like 2 or 3 months. Several. We're still 5 months out.
So John, what Jeff was saying is, can we get any of the building officials up where you guys are, right? Kind of used to SEAC too.
Well, I
focus pretty much on California.
And I was planning on right after this meeting to consult Hector's calendar, because Hector was planning on setting up. So I was going to provide him some suggestions on how to get that connection up. Since I'm locked in, I'm connected in very well.
So I think in July is going to be inner solar.
I am.
Well, okay, so Hector,
Jeff talked about it.
I'm just thinking, San Francisco, yes, I'm going up there.
Hector, let's just do this real quick. What's going to happen is you're going to be up in Santa Cruz on first Friday of June. Second of all is that you're going to be in San Francisco. You're going to be in San Francisco, what is it?
Intersolar is, what is the third?
No, it's not the third, it's the second one. So it would be, wouldn't it be the 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th?
That's about right. Yeah, February. It's always in July.
So those are, so you'll be coming in twice, and Five Guys Winery would be more than happy to have you visit us.
Sounds dangerous.
I just thought it was a polite offer.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Come to my web, that's a fighter.
Is that what you're talking about, Hector?
No, it'll be fun. It'll be a lot of fun. Okay,
Your
so
black jacket.
to come back over here, so we have a small group that's going to detail this. It's more than one issue, which is great. We have some contacts, some utilities, and it was SoCal,
CAPA, SCTPA.
SCTPA. Okay, so that may be a group to outreach
Or to cover all the Southern California.
Okay. Do they go up to PG&E or no? Just one?
No, it includes SoCal Edison and all the smaller, but not.
PG&E kind of drops around San Luis.
Yeah, Bakersfield.
So, and is it you suggesting we, how do we engage those folks?
I'll find out. I don't know if they'll be interested in being engaged in this topic. Usually they're a collective for entering into PPAs where they have a more bargaining.
Right. Okay.
The guys include your user includes
User, yeah.
User may be more the PPA route.
Yeah, he's right. The staff is more geared toward purchases.
Okay.
You know, setting up
okay.
master purchase.
The leader.
Tiffany,
Ava Beta.
All right, and then once we have those issues, we're going to form a technical group to really hammer them out and give the document was to approve. Okay, follower number 12, next steps and action items.
Yeah, so the next step in action items, we're going to secure the domain after we've agreed on the new name, or have we?
So we may not be changing.
I think we agreed on the name of this.
I'm okay. Let's make SEAC change your name.
How much pressure did you get after?
My arm's still good.
Well, that's kind of really the deciding factor.
So if we don't need, are you guys okay with the name?
Yeah,
absolutely.
I am.
So we're going to
But we don't want, I just don't want you.
No, don't worry. Okay. So
maybe to help, can we just simply say we're okay with keeping the name because one is people know of it now, and a change it would confuse the industry and would set it back. I agree. Back in its progress and already enjoyed.
Would it help if we just, I'm sorry.
And two is that so when you sound it out, yeah, okay, maybe close, but it's different letters.
just for SEAC.
Well, maybe we should just use the full name more. Solar Energy Action Committee.
Yeah.
Not a bad idea.
Yeah, instead of the acronym.
All
Or we just drop the C in, so it's like SEAC. Solar Energy Action.
C.
But wait a minute, that would be like another organization.
All right, next step. We're 5 minutes over, folks. What do you guys out here?
Okay, so we're going to publish all the completed briefing notes then on the new website. The utility briefing notes were mentioned. Well, I think Jim and a whole lot of others are going to coordinate some sort of a group get together to carry on.
So we got to set up a conference call with them. We've got, and it's going to be Jim, Peter,
Mustafa, Israel.
Is me or Tiffany? What is this, the utility one?
Yeah, just to hammer out the specific issues that
Yeah. Pat.
Yes.
Pat will be involved.
Okay. And
Shy.
Okay, excellent. So that'll be the additional folks. Okay, good. And go on, Paul. What else?
all right, and then start putting together commercial guidelines group to commence scoping, planning, and execution.
Yeah, and that folks, whoever, this is just to set the scope. It's not to write the manual. It's just to kind of formulate what is this end product should look like. So we can put together an RFP. It's just want to get the scope of this document. Whatever documents are out there, I'm going to take a look at the Imperial County one, and it's what we glean from there, and let's just get the scope down. And I know some powers still here or they're not here. Good. Rob Biggs was very, very interested in that. So let him know that we're moving forward, putting this map together, input or where we get time to be very valuable.
Is he the one that came to the first meeting and then he mainly deals with solar, power plants for solar?
Yeah.
Utility scale.
Sorry.
Okay, so I'll send Rob an email.
What?
I can send Rob an email.
Okay. Yeah, I'm actually in the middle of writing.
Oh.
So we're moving forward. We're putting a manuscript of solar. Okay. And we talked about it before. So we wanted to scope it out right now. So if you got somebody available, we'll scope it out. That's just kind of big picture.
Okay, and then the draft meeting summary will be shared next week. Don't forget February's meeting is February the 18th, and it will be in conference room C, which is down that way on opposite ends of the and then March the 24th meeting, it seems like we might be having that at UL facility in Brea.
Right. That looks like it is.
Oh, it is. Okay, so then
as far as I'm concerned, that's where I will be on March 24th. You guys are welcome to join.
Okay, so then Don, if you can share the details with me, and then I can forward it out to everyone, the address and everything.
Yeah.
And
that's it. And then any open forum and feedback from.
One more item, action item. The next meeting, just a brief demo on how to use Google Drive.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. All right.
Okay.
Okay. Awesome.
Anything from the floor? Okay. Anybody? Comments? Questions? Anything? Anybody online? We good?
That's it.
Great, folks. Excellent. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you.
How's everything going? Good. How are you doing? Good. I'm glad you were here. I didn't. I found out last week. You did? I mean, it's not. This is one thing.